Let's go. That's right. Back at it again, man. Good. I'm good. Good to see you, bro.
No. Right, now I think I'm recording. Oh, good job.
Okay.
When I see you, I just see a smiling, happy, healthy looking, contented person with his lot and his life. And I'm like, we were
Hmm.
the same, weren't we? You know, why is
Yeah.
it that when you ask people, so many people, how you do, oh, all right, oh, you just do it, don't you? I don't get it, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah. Absolutely, man.
Well, I think, like I say, they need to have the bar of their expectations low, because
Hmm.
their expectation is, oh, I've not got all this money, I've not got the best girl, I've not got the best car, I need a bigger house. Well, what about you still got both your legs, you still got both your arms, you still got 10 fingers, and you're compos mentis, you're healthy, and this, that, and the other. And what about that then? Because any one of those taken away, you'll know about it, and then you become
Right.
in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But all right. I mean, we can pretty much get into. There's a couple of topics I wanted to talk about, like basically like cells and again, more there's so much more to cover on like consciousness and God and whatnot. Uh, just perspective, reality, and I know that you once sent me a video on the simulation theory. Um, why do you fall more into that category of like the simulation theory? Because I would like to cover into that area and what my thoughts on that basically are.
More than what? I don't know whether I necessarily
So,
lean towards that.
mhm. Well, I mean, you sent me a video on Billy Carson, how he's on. Remember, I was asking you about conscious and sentience and how you see things, and basically, you sent me a video to kind of correlate or equate to where your ideas of like reality are. And you sent me a video
Yes.
on Billy Carson on the simulation theory. Now, Billy Carson is actually somebody who pushes a lot on how to succeed in this matrix, like being a billionaire and whatnot. And that's something that you and
Right.
I kind of like didn't really see eye to eye with that. When I look at reality here, I see a lot of how this system works. You know, when we say as above, so below, as within, so without. This is basically a copy of what actually occurs, let's say, in the astral realm from my perspective. You get what I'm saying? From how
Right.
I've seen the mental realm works. Because I also mentioned that when you go deeper, things don't really look how they look here or how we're programmed to think they look. Like fire to me doesn't look like fire. You know what I'm saying? Electricity doesn't look like electricity anymore. People just look distorted. Everything just kind of looks ugly. It doesn't look uh, how you would look at it here. And I guess that's where we start to get into the realm of like the formless, and it doesn't look beautiful anymore because there's no longer a programmed shape to what we say beauty is. You know what I'm saying? But in a deeper way, we look at beauty here subjectively, where it might be beautiful to you, but not beautiful to me. So we say beauty's in the eye of the beholder. You get what I'm trying to say? So I
Yeah.
want to go into different areas of thought when it comes into that. And how we could tie all that and equate that together and basically see how I see it, and then you tell me how you see it, and see where we meet on that.
Yeah. So I was thinking that Billy Carson thing because he was reiterating, what I was saying, in that there's some level of contrivance going on here. And you could call it simulation, you can call it hologram, you can call it some sort of fabrication from some higher entity. And then when we start to look at what we are, we discover that there isn't an actual fact anything. So it's kind of like being sentient in The Sims. Because if the Sim characters tried to look for what they were, then all they'd find was binary. And that's all we find. And that's all Neil deGrasse Tyson and Simon Gates, theoretical physicist, and lots of other people, that's what they say. The universe
Mhm.
is binary. It's code. And Tyson's
Mhm.
got what, are you telling me that the universe is written in the same code we use in our computers? And Simon Gates goes, yes, it's exactly the same
Mhm.
code. And
Yeah.
so when you look at it like that, coupled with that quantum physicists say that there is no material matter here, and then you got all of these hypotheses of simulation and hologram and all this. Look, there's no smoke without fire. And so, because we know there is no reality, then I think just to keep open about something else is, very reasonable. And so, there's been so many things in my life that have just kind of like been bizarre, and you just look up and it's kind of like in the Truman Show. You look up and you know that someone's watching you, and you know that
Mhm,
some stuff's going down. And so, yeah, that's kind of like where I'm coming from on all this stuff.
mhm. So, like in that instance, let's say if this reality isn't real, then what is the information that we gather here? What does it matter overall? And if, let's say, if reality, let's say, isn't real, we can consider everybody else, automatons. Uh, do you consider yourself an automaton, or what is your definition of an automaton or an NPC and whatnot, and just programs and concrete reality? Do you hold the information that you have as concrete reality, and is it something that's valuable to you?
Well, I'm an adherent that there's nothing in existence here, and we're all being dreamt in the mind of God.
Mm,
So there is no knowledge as such, but there is an operating system within this matrix thing.
mm,
You see, they're speaking now about creating sentience in the sim characters. So
yeah.
if the sim characters have a level of consciousness, if they started to look at themselves, I'm pretty sure, they'd see something like what we do. The only difference is in the Sims. They're in flat world. It's two dimensional at this moment in time. But I'm sure they can make it in three dimension. And
Mm,
so I don't believe that anything is real.
mm,
I think that there is an essence to what we are, and that's spirit. And my angle or handle on spirit is, I use the analogy of like a mirror. And let's say God is a mirror, and God was sick and tired of maybe staring himself at the mirror if he could do that, and so he decides to break the mirror into like gazillion shards, and each one of these shards have their own perspective now. That whatever reflection they get, it's unique to them, but the shards all pertain to the mirror. And
mm,
let's just say one day the mirror's going to come back together, and then God will be united with Himself. Now, this is very in keeping with Kabbalah, because Jewish Kabbalah have something called sparks, which they gather whilst they're here. And when you read about what these sparks are, it's very long, it's very convoluted, it's very mythological, and it's difficult to get your head around, because there's all these beings in the beginning did this and decided to do that, and then created this, and then that happened. But ultimately, what the Jewish Kabbalah sparks are is that in our lives we have like a Pac-Man game, and we are gathering up these sparks, and we get these sparks which are very meaningful, poignant times in our life. They can come about in abject poverty or terror or sickness. They can come about with the greatest of joy and this and the other. We never know when they're going to come about, but we've got to gather them all up. And once we've
mm,
gathered them all up, then we are whole and we can go back again. And so
yeah.
that seems very much like the broken mirror thing. And so the thing is about, I am absolutely convinced with my intuitive level about this thing. Because when I think ideas up, and then I hear or read about somebody else having these ideas hundreds or thousands of years ago, I go, exactly. Where did it come from? It come from the Akasha. It come from the ether. It come from all the information within this computer, within the simulation, with whatever. We are transceivers and transmitters, and How did Einstein come up with that stuff? How did Newton come up with that stuff? And how does Beethoven? How did he come up with this stuff? They all you used to say, like Michelangelo. I don't know. It's just divine inspiration, and I think that's what it is. And then
Yeah.
when I'm making my rants, and I'm saying, look, you've got muggles, you've got muppets, you've got automaton, you've got drones, you've got partially spirited people, highly spirited people. You've got all these varying degrees of the human being. There is no one definitive human being. We are very, very different from one another. How we perceive the world, how we act in the world, our intelligence levels, and I swear that the vast majority of people are like what Dolores Cannon says. They're backdrop people. They're just extras in the spiritual people's movies. And I can't see no evidence for that being wrong. Because in my videos over 14 years, I've labored, and I can't penetrate. You know, if they are awoken, they're awoken. And that's just it. We're born awoken. We're a different variety. We are spirited human beings. And, in the Bible, Jesus says, let the dead bury the dead. Because he knew it was absolutely wasting his time and the time of the apostles to start preaching to the spiritually dead. They don't have the wherewithal. They're in a different, concentric circle of consciousness. You can't penetrate these people. And this is why I'm always having a go at Christians, because they are
Yeah.
the dullest of the dull. They're absolutely riddled in dogma. They don't have an ounce of spirit, and it's laughable. You know, they
Yeah.
they they think they're the most spiritual and the most religious, but they're the most dumb and the most indoctrinated and
Mhm.
myopic in mind. And it's just a joke. And then,
Yeah.
I have a go at them, I rile them a little bit, and then you start them off with all the hate and the judgment. And I'm going,
Right.
look, you've just blown the first commandment of Jesus, judge not.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my
Well,
God.
I mean, I ask all this. I'm sorry. Are you done?
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
want to cut you off.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. No, I ask all this because I of course I read your book, but I also have questions that I want to kind of see where it tunnels into because the way I see my reality, for example, there's going to be different people with different levels of intelligence. And before I even jump into that topic, I want to know what your definition of intelligence is because you said levels of intelligence, and how do you put that in like a simplest term as far as what intelligence is?
Hmm. Well, I mean, like all things, it's very, very varied. Now,
Mhm.
we have, let's say, like a logic intelligence of a mathematician or a scientist,
Mhm.
somebody like that, someone whose mind works very clearly with induction and deduction. Therefore, they
Mhm.
can work a problem forward to see the outcome. They can work a problem backwards to see where the problem derived. So they
Mhm.
use these powers on a linear trajectory. And so that's one level of intelligence. Then you've got another level of intelligence, which is imaginative, where art and music comes from, which is an innate thing because as far as I can see, all these people that have been brilliant in these realms, they've just been natural. McCartney and Lennon, they couldn't even read music or nothing like that, but they just had an ear for it and they just had a flair, like they'd been, reincarnated, millions of times, musicians, and finally it all come together in this level of genius. And I often state that McCartney and Lennon on their own, they wouldn't have been anything too phenomenal. But when they came together and then they put their genius together, that's when, the whole world shook.
Mhm.
And so that intelligence, then there's another level of intelligence, which is intuition. Intuitively, this is where most of my intelligence comes from. It's a level of I just know it.
Mhm.
And then what I've done over the years is via my experience and via my gathering up of information through an enormous amount of reading, then it's kind of like, that's it. He says this here, he says that there, and all these sort of things.
Mhm.
And then with my experiences, when I had this DMT trip, where one day I'm on the beach and I see God in, or a bearded man, let's just say, in the clouds, absolutely as clear as day. He was there for 15 minutes. He looked like Socrates with a beard in the hair, super content, just gazing out over the whole world, not looking at anything in particular. And I'm like, well, where does that come from? What happens there? And you see, I've had experiences like that by just breathing. And when we do this Wim Hof type breathing, we can have these DMT esque visions. And I had a very similar thing with a bearded man in the clouds just from hyperventilating on the beach. And so, as soon as our consciousness just slips a little bit to one side or the other, we go into different dimensions. And so, there's so many different dimensions, but I believe that if we're more versatile with our intelligence, with our spirit, or whatever it is that makes up each particular human being, whatever we tap into, then because I've been tapping into all this stuff, and like I say, that Jesus spoke to me, God spoke to me. I've been to hell, and I've had angels speak to me, and all these sort of things. And I'm like, why me? I wasn't religious,
Mhm.
and I'm not religious, and I never will be religious. I'm
Yep.
spiritual. But so
Mhm.
why do I have those experiences? Well, it could just be that I've got a big mouth and I can string a few sentences together and make it moderately interesting for people to listen to. So there seems there's a purpose behind the universe using people. And so I say, the universe is using you. It's using these bodies. It's created these bodies to experience itself. And I believe it's created all living things to experience
Mhm.
itself.
Very well put. So here's my there's a reason why I actually got into the topic of intelligence, because just looking at everything, just overall, I could see nature. There's a form of intelligence there, and I could look at that as an artificial intelligence of the system, right? Like what makes a sunflower turn toward the sun? You get what I'm saying? All these things that sometimes we look at and wow, you know, we got people saying that plants aren't sentient. Plants, they don't have a nervous system. They don't have a brain or a heart, but we could just discard that it's life. And because I made a video and I spoke about what is life. You know what I'm saying? Because
Yeah.
the main question is, what is the purpose of us being here? You
Hmm.
get what I'm saying? What is the purpose to life? And then I asked, well, what is life? What is life in general? You know what I'm saying? And life, if I want to look at it as something outside of myself, like you even said that the universe is using us. Life is expressing to and through us. You know what I'm saying? But it just depends on what we tap. And I look at everything as far as a sexual experience. Even you use the word tap into. You hear this in like street talk. Yo, I tap that ass. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just tapping, but there's different parts of you that you tap and you exploit to some extent, right? So when I live in a home, there's certain people who have a passion for building homes. They have an eye. Like my sister's uh, husband is a contractor. I remember I was hanging out with him one time, and just by going into a place, he hasn't. They say, "Oh, I have an eye for that." Like he has an eye for being able to tell what he's going to charge just by looking at things without writing it on paper. He already
Yeah.
knows because he's got a trained eye for that, right? But I feel like intelligence is exploited by a passion of what you're doing. You get what I'm saying? This is why when it came down to the topic of money before, I was trying to get a little deeper in that, but we've already been on the talk for 3 hours and whatnot. So I'm like, we can save that for another talk, which this would be perfect for. But intelligence, for example, I remember that I've always been I know I have leadership qualities just by what I've been doing ever since I started in playing in this game over here, this Matrix game. I've always been promoted. All my jobs have always been in the management field, but I've always excelled because of the passion I put into it. If I didn't like what I was doing, I probably wouldn't be as good at it as anybody else.
Yeah.
And then here's the thing: when it comes down to like this intelligence we talk about with like the cosmic intelligence that we get, right? Like like why me? Like people say,
Mm.
why me? Well, spiritually, like what happened with me, I was very into the corporate world, very left brained, but there was a burning desire inside of me. Because ever since I was in school, I remember this exact moment where they taught us how the pyramids of Giza were built. And for some reason, as a child, I wasn't buying it. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. Something in me was talking to me. And I didn't know what it was until now. And I'm like, I know what it is when spirit's talking to you. Like, that's what I feel when spirit's talking to me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like a hunch or an inspiration to want to look further. You know what I'm saying? But I never found any concrete answer because every time I would go research, I would get the same shit. Ramps, sleds, slaves, blah, blah, blah. It's bullshit. You get what I'm
Yeah.
saying? But now I went back into the corporate world, kind of forgot about that, put it in the back burner, but it's still there. You know what I'm saying? It's still there. I remember at one point, uh, I ran a supplement industry where I ran, like, the entire Northeast and even the Mexico market. I was in charge of a big, big territory. You know what I'm saying? I was making great money. But for some reason, this burning desire for curiosity started sparking in me again. And it happened like this. I'm sitting in my couch, and it happened to be where, when you get that little lazy feeling where you just want to chill out and relax, I kind of closed my eyes for a second. But in that instant, I started to see colors. I started to see colors everywhere, and I felt my body starting to float. And I
Hmm.
was like, well, this is interesting. Now something's happening, right? But I stayed with it because I was curious.
Yeah.
But now I started to feel my head go over here. And then, but now here's the problem with me. I've always been afraid of ghosts. I've always been afraid of paranormal. I had this big fear, which I'm not afraid of now. I had to overcome that. But growing up, my grandmother was a witch, and she did a lot. We're Puerto Rican. She did a lot of brujeria. I remember that there was always like, jars with like monkey heads in it, and
Right.
in a certain solution. She had like bones and sticks everywhere. She had like crazy shit. She was some real shit. She was into some deep ass shit that I to this day I still don't know. She did card readings for people, and I remember always a lot of people would just keep coming to her. But I was always very scared because of how she was doing things. She looked like she was going into trances and doing stuff, and I
Right.
got scared. And I don't know. And then I watched movies in Hollywood, and then I just got that in my psyche, and for some reason I was scared. But I always feel like that was passed on by something else, what we call ancestors. And I want to talk about history with you in a second because
Hmm.
that's going to be an interesting topic. But you know how a child is naturally not born, he's not born scared of anything, like the fear of spiders and all that shit is passed down by the fucking mom, it's passed down by, parents, certain things that it's programmed even from the womb of the child. And even this, Dr. Bruce Lipton talked about, which I thought was super interesting. But there's a lot of meta-analysis in sciences that show that these babies get programmed from from the womb, even knowing the actual voice of the dad when they come out. You know what I'm saying? If the dad was present in the house.
Yeah.
And it's crazy how I look at this and I'm like, something within me was programmed that way, because I want to know why I'm so afraid of like demons and ghosts. But then I grew up in such a religious household, and it was far from like what my grandma was doing, right? But she was very big believer in Jesus Christ. And I'm going to explain these experiences because it's going to tie into, I want to, you talked about
Yeah.
a lot about your experiences in your book, but I find that because everybody's got their own individual little unique way of how they came into this thing. I had a big fear. So I remember I started to go on YouTube and research third eye and whatnot. And they started to say that when you open your third eye, you see spirits. Bro, I swear I closed that shit off and I was like, yo, I'm not having nothing to do with this shit. And I complained. And you know what happened? I laid there and then I was like this. Now I'm like looking around like, trying to take a deep breath. But as I closed my eyes, this shit started fucking tingling. And I'm like, oh my God, what the fuck is this shit? I didn't want nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
But something within me, again, just kept. I was curious. I've always been a curious person.
Yeah.
So I slowly but surely started to dip my toes into different areas. I left religion, but I also noticed the change that when I went from one religion to go out of like into spirituality, I went into it with a religious mindset. That's the mistake that a lot of people make, because spirituality is not a religion.
Mm.
Spirituality is just what you are, but it's what you observe outside of you. It's everything that you can look at. Because when you look at religion, if you're religious, you're truly into all religions. That's what I look at when I see religious, because everybody's talking about the same thing. Like I told you when we were talking about spirituality, manifestation, universe. Manifestation is the miracles God created. Universe is God. Oh, the universe brought me these gifts, and it's another fancy word for God, the New Age word for God. So anyway, I went left hand path. I remember I started working now with demons, but I tiptoed into that because I was fucking paranoid. But I was very curious to see what the fuck came out of that. Then I went into the Rosicrucian order. I was there for a while, and I gained some really good insight on that. And I went into the occult. You know what I'm saying? A lot of mysticism and whatnot. But just stepping out of that, not that there's not any value in that. There's a lot of value in all that stuff. It's just that you either get very immersed in it and it becomes just another religion, and then you start to talk about it as if what you're into is the end all be all and everything else is shit. You get what I'm saying? When everything's pretty much telling you something, is just telling you in a different form, in a different way. You get what I'm saying? Like intelligence, I look at the same way. The plants have an intelligence. What is the human man supposed to do? Aaron, in your opinion, what do you think the human animal man is supposed to be doing?
I think from the investigation that I've had all these
Mm-hmm.
years, we are having this experience to discover what we are. And you see, I've had this thing, like you've had
Mm-hmm.
that thing, and
Mm-hmm.
I can't stop. I've never been able to stop, and I've travelled all around the world, for many, many years on my own, looking, seeking, investigating, and having all different sorts of paranormal experiences, and then investigating them. And I'm like, well, look, I ask people, well, come on, what are your stories? You must have had some, for God's sake.
Mm-hmm.
You're just forcing me into declaring my own genius. If nobody can come forward and say that you think a little bit like me, you've had any of the experiences I have, or you've solved any of the problems, nothing. I'm just speaking to sheep in a field, and for God's sake, but when you look around, there's only a handful of these people, really. There's like Rupert Sheldrake, and then there's um, other people scattered around that have had their own sort of angle on things. And it's like Terence McKenna, would have his own thoughts about psilocybin coming on a meteorite and the food of the gods and all different sorts of things. And you know, I feel that I've had a lot of cosmically inspired things, and that's what I've been trying to convey in the book. And I'm always like, am I going to get through to them? Am I going to get through to them? And in the end, now I'm kind of like, I've given up on that. I'll get through to the people who are receptible to getting through to,
But
because
do you think everybody's supposed to be doing that,
no, no,
like what you're doing,
no,
right? So
no.
the reason
Well,
I asked this, yeah, go ahead. I'll let you
Well,
finish.
first and foremost, I believe that there's, and this is probably, well, I mean, even for me to say believe, from my experience, I have concluded that the spirits that are within the human form, they come from different constellations and planets.
Right,
And when we look into people like Rudolf Steiner, he speaks about the planets being sentient, some of them being evil, some of them being malevolent, and we start growing spiritually through these other dimensions. And he would speak about five bodies: the etheric body, the spiritual body, the astral body, the physical body, and then the emotional body. And so he was saying that we go through an evolution, and now we're at a certain stage in the evolution whereby we have a physical body as well as a spiritual body and an emotional body and all these things. We've got all these bodies. But then I look around and I go, well, not everybody, not everybody. And try as I may with a great deal of people, I could never penetrate them with anything remotely pertaining to the spiritual. They never had the ears for it. They never had the software for it. They just couldn't go there. Some people would lock down because they're terrified. Other people just say, oh, that's bollocks or that's a load of shit. When you find someone, it's kind of like, they're hungry. They look at you. Their eyes don't blink. Their ears are open. They're inquisitive. Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
what did you say about that? No, no, you said this and you said that. What do you mean about that? They're hungry for it because they're one. They're a seer. They don't know it at that moment in time, but they've just started to gather up these little gems. And like you, by the time you've gathered up a load, then you start putting pieces together. You all the right books are placed, in your lap, all the right videos, and all the right people that you meet, and that's how it goes. And I am convinced that there's no free will other than I can decide to turn around on the spot, put my hand in the air, but. Throughout all of our years, we're destined to travel a certain path. We may make small deviances here and there, but all the things that have got coming to us, it's like me being shot. That was just boom. It turned me around in an instant and it sent me on this path. I've never looked back
Mhm.
since. The death of my mother was another one. Boom. That, sent me on a trajectory. It made me the metal I am today.
Yeah.
And all these things that have happened to me, or I've been blessed with, I'm just thinking, I just feel that I'm so blessed. And in the book, I speak about loneliness, don't I? And how I've never
Mhm.
had a single minute's loneliness in all my life. And it wasn't until much later that now I realised what that was, because I was never alone. I always was with spirit. Spirit is always with me, and there's always stuff going on in my mind, and I don't feel small and myopic. I feel as big as the universe. Why do I feel like the universe? Something just happened to me, and I write in the book. All of a sudden, basically overnight, I wake up and I'm the fucking universe. Something, when you wake up, something changes. Your pineal gland goes pop, or something happens, and so
Right.
all these things have happened, and I'm like, well, you know, there's a whole lot more here than meets the eye, but the vast majority of people can't see it. Then when we listen to Harry Potter, they talk about muggles. Well, muggles can't see spirits, and so I'm like, that's why I call them muggles. They
Yeah.
wouldn't know a spirit if you slapped them in the face. They're just not
Mhm.
in that vibration. And that's why we call being spiritually awoken. We're awoken to spirits.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and the reason I asked this, I was going to say, like, what is the human man like supposed to do? It's kind of like, we're a product of our environment. So I heard you in a couple of videos talk about, the environment and whatnot. But if you look at animals, just overall in general, because animals are very interesting creatures to look at. I've got a bunch of cats. I observe birds. I observe possums. I observe raccoons. I observe all kind, even skunks that came over here, turtles.
Mhm.
But they know what to do in their environment. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And us being part of the animal kingdom, we have no idea what we're supposed to do in our environment. Now, the thing is, there's different walks of life, but there's also different people in the environment. So let's say, for example, I got a contractor, like I told you about my sister's, husband. It's like him trying to talk to me to become a contractor and try to force it on me, and I'm like, I have no passion or a desire or interest to even know about that. You get what I'm
Yeah.
saying? That's why when it comes down to certain people who, let's say, if they watch your channel, right, but you feel like they may not be getting it. At one point, do you feel like they're just watching you for entertainment only? You know what I'm saying? Because again, it is very entertaining watching you. And at what point, like, because I was there too, where I was just very curious. I just wanted to keep learning, keep learning. But I think the key is not to stay in the wanting to keep learning, because it's not. You're never going to get to the point that you know everything, but you're going to get to the point where now you stop depending on learning things outside of you, and things just start coming to you, and you start to learn that things now are coming from a space of knowing, because you're operating from a space as within, so without. So instead of looking at it outside, because I heard you say that we're being dreamt by God. But every time I hear that, I still, like, if I was a person who is not privy to the game, I would still hear you saying that it's a God outside, as if a religious God in the sky is like dreaming us, or in the overall presence. Where in actuality, if I'm in a meditative state, I'm technically dreaming my reality right here as we speak. That's why they say merrily, 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 life is but a dream. But when you say we're shards, can you differentiate? Because I remember I said that we are God, and somebody in your comment section said that I need to be a little more humble. That we can't say we're God, but we are shards. And the thing is, it's not one or the other. It can actually be both, but you would have to actually have a deep rooted understanding or knowing, not an understanding, but an understanding as to what that even means. Can you tell me if we are gods, how you can equate that we're shards, but also God at the same time if we're having this experience and I'm a mirror of you? But how could you equate those two things together?
Well,
Like if somebody says that you're one or the other, or do you agree that we're both at the same time?
both at the same time, because
Mm-hmm.
the cosmos is a paradox, and everything in it is paradoxical. When we look at all the things that quantum physicists are telling us, they tell us about entanglement. Yeah, you familiar with that one? Where they
Yeah,
take
of
the
course, of
two,
course.
okay, so therefore they're saying there's only one particle. Then
I
they
go deep on quantum science, by the way.
right,
We could talk deep in that. I love that topic.
yeah, yeah, beautiful.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
they say that the fundamental premise of the cosmos is consciousness, and out of consciousness is the elements, the 92, 94 elements that constitute the cosmos, and they are thought into existence. But then when our physicists look for matter, they can't find any matter. So they're only thoughts. So that's why this thing is only a thought. We're only thinking about matter. Then in the Bible, in the beginning was the Word. So, you know, I pull so many things together from a vast amount of experience. And I'm not just, like I say in my videos, I'm not just picking things out my arse, people. And when people come on and they're not happy with this and not happy with that, and then a couple of people saying like, oh, he's finally lost the plot now. Well, I'm so far out of their consciousness that's what they think, because they're in one of these inner concentric circles of consciousness. They can't see outside. But all the people in my concentric circle know that what I'm saying is perfectly feasible, and I can point you in umpteen directions to PhDs who have said the same thing or similar thing. But I've actually had the experience. Now, in one of my deep meditations, I spoke about this in the book, I go into the quantum field. And I see these little strings, which are trillion times smaller than an atom. How do I see them? Well, I was the cosmos. I was the universe. I was pure awareness. And I saw that they were the fundamental premise of the universe. They were embryos before they were born. They're just giving it this until God thinks them into a reality. And then this is what quantum physics say. They say that these strings constitute the constituents for atoms. Atoms constitute the constituents of molecules and everything. So the quantum field is the fundamental premise of the cosmos. It's mind. It's all mind. And then we look into the philosophy of ideology, idealism, and like
Mm-hmm.
Plato's ideas. It's all mind. We can't find any matter. I say to people, look, I don't, want to wear myself out, but everybody around me just seems to be stupid, because the whole world has been told that there's no physical matter here. And yet everybody has completely dismissed that. And I'm like, the only reason you've dismissed it because the operating system that we have, which is the ego, has to create the fiction to exist. Because if you take ego away, nothing exists. There is nothing. The only thing that's left if you
Right,
take ego away is human spirit.
right.
Hmm.
So matter, there is no matter, but the way I'm seeing it is I don't think matter, there is no matter, but what matters to the individual. So let's say we're seeing something, right? But the meaning we give it, depending on the energy and attention we put into that matter, materializes for that person in a way that they can say this is matter, but for somebody else, that's nothing. Oh, that's nothing. They're not, and this is just on a surface level that we've seen this, because we do this on a light level when even when I'm talking to you and I tell you, hey, Aaron, man, put yourself in my shoes. Can you see what I'm saying when I blah, 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 blah? Let's say if I shoot you a few things, you kind of have a slight out of body experience to get in my shoes to try to experience what I'm saying only by the words I'm saying, because words create mental pictures in your mind, right? You're already making matter in your mind as I'm talking to you. You get what I'm saying? That's why, as we talk to each other, right? Let's say if I'm talking to somebody else and I'm giving them a bunch of spew, something that they're not familiar with, it won't even make sense to them because they can't. When I say make sense, it's because their physical senses have never experienced it. So how can they even make something out of that in their mind as a mental picture, as something that's matter or something concrete or tangible? You get what I'm saying?
Well, here's
That's
the
why I
thing.
say like everything's so it's very tricky when we're using these words and languages and whatnot. Um,
Well,
like matter is just what matters to you and the meanings you give to it. You get what I'm saying?
yeah, again, matter is just a concept. It's just a word,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
in the one of the edits in my chapter, um, when I'm looking into faith, I'm like, well, look, I asked a dozen Christians, what's faith? None of them could answer, and I'm like, well, look, you. Everything you believe depends on this concept of faith, and you can't tell me what it means. What about if I say to you, you don't really have it? You just imagine you're having it. Because if you don't know what it is, how do you know you have it? And then when you type in the dictionary, faith, what's it say? It leads on to belief. What does belief lead on to? Truth. What does truth lead on to? Proof. What does proof lead on to? Suggestion. What does suggestion lead on to? Theory. What does theory lead on to? And all of a sudden, what's happened is that we've gone round in a circle and we're eating our own tail again because words only mean other words, other words, other words. So after
Mm-hmm.
about half a dozen words from faith,
Very good point.
right, meaning truth and reality and this, that, and the other, then all of a sudden it starts to get very, very vague, and then it just ends up back at idea. And I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
exactly, God is a fucking idea. Everything's an
Mm-hmm.
idea. There is nothing here except ideas. And like what you just said now, you say, look, oh, Matt, I'm thinking this and I'm thinking that. You're doing what God did. God's done that
Mm-hmm.
in his mind, which is the cosmos. He's
Right.
thought about mini us in his fucking brain. And if I now think about, a million different little mini me's running around in a little town, in a little village, on a little planet, I can do it. I can think about all that shit. And so therefore, I'm a shard of God consciousness. We all
Mm-hmm.
share in God. We're experiencing God because we all do little things that God never thought about.
Yeah. What is your definition of God? To be clear.
My definition of God is that all that there is, will be, and ever has been. It's the essence of existence, the essence of consciousness, the essence of awareness. If we come down to the fundamental premise of which we as human beings can't go any further, we reach the bottom in awareness because we can never ever get rid of our awareness. And even when we die, it appears that we can't get rid of that because so many testimonies of people being dead and their awareness wasn't gone. And
Right.
so, I don't, because there's no physical matter here, there's nothing to fucking die, there's nothing to decay, it's
Yeah.
just a dream.
I just can't see that. You see, this is why I asked you this question, I think, various times, because I can't see that definition as not being a religious answer, in my opinion. You know what I'm saying? Like, the way I'm seeing God, it's like the essence of everything is what I am, because it cannot exist unless I am actually collapsing it into existence. I'm talking to you right now, and I'm putting attention and energy into our conversation, but it cannot happen unless I'm here. Like everything, as far as what we know of God, is just ideas. The same way everything else is just ideas, but just the way it's uh, expressed by somebody, sometimes I can't help but to notice that it still kind of sounds like it's something outside of you. To me, God is of like once you become sovereign, you have more of an authority over your life. You get what I'm saying? Like you have more control of your situations because now you're more of an adult. You have an adult way of being, but you're still childlike. You could still have both. That's why I said you could be Shards, you could be God, because you can also be an adult, but you never stop being a child. You only stop being a child based on what society like tells you you're supposed to be like when you're an adult. But we still are all our children. In fact, we hid the child in the closet, and that's the problem. We stopped playing. Kids like to play. If we were more playful in this environment, we'd probably have a more harmonious life because that's what the key to life is. To me, the key to life is to play, but people take it too serious. You get what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
to
When I
play.
see, well, I'm gonna finish now.
Okay.
The authority part that I say has to just come down to how you, because I look at these words and I could categorize myself as a wordsmith only because I break things down from Latin to American. Only because I speak Spanish, I have a very good grasp on the difference between language. I can even hear a Portuguese or an Italian person speaking, and I can understand what they're saying because a lot of these words come from Latin. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? But if you look at conduct yourself, como uno se conduce en la sociedad, how you conduct yourself in society, it's like the conductor of a train. But then you see the word train. Everything's a mental training, but everything we also see in conspiracy theories has to do with mind control. It all has to do with the mind because in Hermetic principles, the mind is all, the universe is mental. But you train at work, you're training a child as they get older. They're getting trained in school how to be an employee. It kind of looks like jail when they're in there. They come out, playground, have lunch. Even the way the halls look, it looks like jail. But the way they're structuring their mind as to how to operate in a society is very robotic, but it's just to be an employee. They don't teach you about money. They don't teach anybody anything like that. So let's say, for example, I decided, because I want to go into the topic of even being a man in this society. But God is literally the image of God, the image of man is being a man here. But that's the thing. I don't think men know how to be men. That's why I asked, what is a man supposed to do in this society, in this realm? It's not to go to work 9 to 5s, and bring home the money. Let's say we want to go back to caveman days. Back in the day, we would have to leave the wife at home, go hunting, and bring the food home. And oh, yeah, that's the resources. Now it's evolved to I have to go to work, bring home the money and provide for the family. That's me being a man. Yes, in this society, that's good. So it's the way it's structured. But in actuality, the real meaning of being a man has a lot to do with actually knowing how to guide the feminine energy. But that has a lot to do with you understanding the Virgin Mary inside of you. You can't and this is the thing, even the Virgin Mary, the whole story of Jesus Christ. I had this realization, this little pondering just last night, where I'm like, how is it a Virgin Mary? What is the meaning of virgin? It's somebody who's never had sexual intercourse, the purity of somebody who's never been corrupted. But we see the word corrupted as if having sex is a form of corruption. You know what I'm saying? But then we say we bring life into the planet through sex. But there's a difference between having sex and making love. You get what I'm saying? And most of the time when a man is not truly a man, or he's not born of the father, he's still in his animalistic nature, or let's say in the fallen state, how we would call it. I would call that the negative side of energy. And negative energy is dark energy, which is feminine energy. That's why women are attractive. But a lot of the times, if they haven't overcame that, I don't even think they can have a partner and concretely have a woman to be there and never leave them. Like literally, you're one unit. Because since you became a whole unit, you attracted your partner, or you can guide your woman to be one unit. I had a very interesting conversation with my wife, and I'm almost done. I don't want to take too much time talking because I want to hear your points too. But just basically talking to her. And sometimes she goes into a chaotic state. And I'm observing this. And I have one or two options. I can get emotional and get involved with it and like feed into that shit. You know what I'm saying? Or I can just step back and literally guide her out of that hell that she's in, because her daddy would basically be the negative side of energy. But it's not to say that it's bad. You see, the religious way of looking at things is that negative or darkness is bad, and it's not bad. It's just the other side of chemistry to the positive side. So you have feminine and masculine. You plug into a wall, that's how you light up an appliance. You plug a woman, right, by a dick, and that's how you birth an electrical. You have a reflection of light come out from that socket. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
it's like all that. I'm looking at everything as one. When I say as one, even like black people, white people, black people, I don't care if I'm seeing white men or black men. They're the negative side of energy. Even by how they conduct themselves. Look at how they're programmed. They're trying to fight for equal rights. Women now in these movements are trying to be equal to the man. Like you see how, but you don't see man trying to be equal to the woman. You don't see the white man trying to be equal to the black man. So that means that black is literally the feminine side of energy. But they're supposed to just do exactly how a woman is supposed to be a woman, do what a woman's supposed to do. A man's supposed to do what he's supposed to do here. But we're blinded by the way the system tells you you're supposed to do things, that they're trying to do all these movements. And that's how this illusion of separation keeps occurring. But it's not to say that it's bad. I don't care if somebody's dumb fucking sheep and retarded. Yeah, I don't care. They're needed there. I'm having an experience. I'm swimming in waters that I'm living my life in. In fact, we need the contractors to build houses so that I can have my space to reside in. You get what I'm saying? I don't expect that person to be in the same flow as me. I can never build a house. So he's got a certain level of intelligence that I don't possess. But I have a different form of intelligence that he doesn't possess. Somebody else who does gardening, somebody else who's a mechanic. They all got, but they're in their spaces doing what they're supposed to do. I look at them as just blood cells in a body that are doing what they're supposed to do. No different than the heart would never indoctrinate the liver on how to do things. But when you see it as a totality, though, let's say if you look at the cells in your gonads, well, one would think, well, they're just for reproductive purposes, for sex, right? But it's not really for sex because there's potential there. Matter of fact, that's where God is. God is at that bottom of the abyss, and your job is to raise that energy, which we call that Kundalini awakening, get it up to the upper realms and bring it up to heaven. So then that's where I look at man as potential, but not everybody is going to be in that space to say, oh, we're going to get it to where that blood cell in that sexual reproductive organ, all of them have to be in Christ consciousness. You know what I'm saying? That's how I kind of look at the totality of things. And being a man, that's what I think man lost. You know what I'm saying? Man lost how to be a man. And being a man it's the same way you're observing the sun. The sun is the masculine energy taking order over the chaos of the feminine energy of the planet called Mother Earth. You get what I'm saying? But us here, our job is to basically overcome humanity, look at above. And it's not even, there's no direction. I'm just saying for conversation purposes, because in space there's no direction. But here, if we want to look at things as far as order goes, because we can actually say, oh, a woman is under a man and she'll never be equal to a man, but that's not even a pecking order. All it is just because out of the woman comes man, the Virgin Mary, but we are all the Virgin Mary. Even men have the Virgin Mary in them. It's just how do you bring that, how do you bring yourself, that Christ, out of that Virgin Mary? It's not even a physical thing. It's just, that's just the same allegory, but we're always looking at Christ conscious. That's why we're in a patriarchal system, because even the good side is masculine, the bad side would be feminine. But looking at it where it's just masculine, Christ conscience is God, Jesus, but we don't look at well, who was Mary? You know what I'm saying? Why Mary's in there? Well, how about we find Mary in us then, and then we can find how we can birth that creation out of our system, which is basically the overall that we're observing outside of ourselves, as within, so without. I know I went a lot in there, so I'll let you get your points in on what you think of all that.
Okay, so just backing up there, then to finish
Yeah,
off
yeah.
my notion of God. When we look at quantum physics, they say that the cosmos is conscious. Well, if the fundamental premise of the cosmos is consciousness, then as far as I'm concerned, that's God. And when I speak about being shards of God and being dreamt by God, I mean the cosmos. Now, of course, none of us have any idea about the expanse of the cosmos, whether it is in actual fact infinite, because we can't conceive anything being infinite. We live finite existence, and everything on this earth, as far as we're concerned, is finite because it's all in constant flux. It's always moving, it's always changing, and so nothing stays the same. And so I couldn't even hypothesize about the expanse of the cosmos. But as far as I'm concerned, as far as my intuition tells me and my consciousness, it is consciousness. That's what's God. And out of consciousness, just like, you see, all these things, they relate to each other. You can pick at so many different
Yeah.
realms. You pick out a quantum physics, you pick out the Bible. They mean the same freaking thing. They're starting from the same premise and they're ending in the same premise. And so, and the other thing is when we look at the construct of the world. I don't get et up, contrary to what people think in my videos, about anything that's going on here, because I'm absolutely confident that it's a dream and nobody dies. There's nothing to die, and so. But what we've done here, what God has dreamt up is human beings with a program, which is our ego. And the ego just means the it. It's a stupid word, but that's what Freud, it's just the it that he considered was the spark of humanity. But that was only one perspective from a psychologist. If you listen to a spiritualist, and they'll say, well, no, the ego isn't the spirit. It's like we were speaking about last week about the soul. Some people say the soul is the spark in the human being, but then I'll say, no, that's not right. Even consciousness is the spark. Consciousness is fundamental. Everything comes out of consciousness. And, so
That's right. That's why if you knock somebody out, right? What's happening? There's nobody home.
yeah, all of a sudden it's gone. The consciousness is gone. And
Their
so,
consciousness is gone.
and then for him, the whole world disappears, the cosmos disappears. You turn off consciousness and everything disappears. Why? Because consciousness is the electricity that brings the light in a light bulb. That's what, I use an analogy. You turn on the electricity to a light bulb, and all of a sudden the light then is beaming and it's sending out photons right across the cosmos
Mm-hmm.
forever. They're unstoppable. And so that's it. But you turn the light off, there's no consciousness anymore, the bulb's dead. And so, um, when we look at the Bible and they're talking about God, well, I mean, just look at what's gone on there. Because patriarchs wrote all this stuff, then they considered God or chose God to be a male. Now, well, look, if there was a male, if he is a male, there has to be a female. So where's the female? All of a sudden it falls down. It completely breaks down. It's not feasible. It's not rational. God, just say God is an essence. God is consciousness. God is spirit. Yeah, fine. Why say he's a man? And then he made us in his image. So he must be a man then also. Preposterous, ridiculous, nonsense, all of it. I mean, it starts off on such a rudimentary, basic, limited expression to get to people with no education in these desert countries. Come on, people, wake up. It's the word of God. Well, I've read that Bible umpteen times and I've studied it long and hard. And if God wrote that piece of shit book, then he's as dumb as fuck. He's contradictory, he's a schizophrenic, he's evil, he's fucking everything because it's all in those stupid books. One contradiction after the other, after the other, after the other, and shit that just doesn't make any sense. And
Right.
then, you go onto the Quran, and that's just as bad. And then you go on to any other religion, and you just go, hang on, let's have a look at all these religions. Apparently there's about 2,000 religions, on the globe, and they all profess to have their own God. But human beings, intelligent human beings, please bear with me. You know, you've just been indoctrinated in your countries and in your cultures to believe that your fiction is the real fiction. For fuck's sake, if you're born in China, you'd be thinking that somebody else is a god. If you're born in Maori or something, then it's all circumstantial. Everything's circumstantial, and it's kind of like I shouldn't have to be saying this. I really shouldn't. I'm always coming at it from a bigger picture. I don't get involved in the minutiae, except when I'm just stirring up the pot, having a silly laugh, being an ego. I don't take any of this serious.
Yeah, yeah,
So
that's a good point. You know what? That's a great point. See, right now we're getting into the details, but because we're both scientists, you get what I'm saying? We're both scientists, we're both priests, and we're both observers, right? But overall, I mean, shit, I go out, I do whatever the fuck I want. I mean, I eat pretty much a balanced meal, but I don't have a religion toward like, oh, it is what it is. It's just basically knowing how to manage yourself. I treat people how they treat me, and in kind they treat me. It's kind of like a symbiotic thing going on there. But I made a couple of videos on how we observe the reptilian side of ourselves based on how we conduct ourselves, but at the same time, in a very, very subtle level, if you're very aware, everything does mold and shape to your will. You get what I'm saying? If somebody's nice to us to some extent, but then yet I give them an attitude back, they may be inclined to give me an attitude after that, even though they were initially nice to me, right? Or
Yeah.
if they're really fucked up to me and I act nice to them, it's kind of like it's not in them to be. I mean, it's just like you're neutralizing things, right? But overall, just as a chemistry goes, overall, my mind, my intentions, my true, pure intentions behind it, I've noticed mold and shape to my will. You get what I'm saying? And it's not to say that I'm doing it for selfish gains. These are experiments I've done just overall. Like I see you did the rice experiment. Um, what were your I saw that you said that the one you said love to still molded or it didn't stay fresh. Can you talk about that real quick?
Yeah, I mean, I did that for 3 months, and
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have one where I said I hate it because I'm an adherent to if you utter and think those things, then you will infest yourself. And so, if every day, 3 or 4 times a day, I'm saying, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you, I'm saying it to myself. I'm going to cause myself some illness or something, and so there's no way I was going to get involved. I don't use the word hate, and so I just ignored one, and I said I loved you to the other one. And bizarrely, the one I said I love you to, that one started to get contaminated after 2 months, and even on the base of it now, it's still pure white, but towards the top, it's a little bit pink, and the top part turned into a rice ball. It just molded itself into a ball. And I'm like, well, what is all that about? And a pink ball. And I'm like, well, I seem to remember I did a video about a pink football,
Mm-hmm.
years ago. It was the law of attraction. I said, I'm going to do this law of attraction thing. I'm thinking, what can I think of? Okay, a pink football. What's the chances of finding a pink football? The next day, I'm cycling into town and I'm coming down a dual carriageway, and in the middle reservation, which is 6 feet wide of grass, there's a glistening pink football gleaming in the sun. I'm like, you can't make this stuff up, people. And then I said,
Mm-hmm.
okay, well, could have been a fluke, whatever. So I said, well, look, I'm going to think of something else. Okay, right. We have one of our coins that went out of mint in 1970, and it's got 12 sides, it's brass, that one of those. Okay. And so forgot about it. I let it go. 2 weeks later, I'm out with Paul, and I said in the video initially, I said, oh, look, just to make it a little bit more clear, the person that gives me that coin, because they're going to give it me, I'm not going to find it, someone's going to give it me, and they're going to place it in my left hand. Now I'm right-handed, and so why I would put my left hand out to receive something, I don't know, but I just thought that. 2 weeks later, we was at our favourite park, and we're having a coffee, and then Paul goes, hold your hand out. And I looked at him and I went, and I held my left hand out. He put in one of these coins. I looked at that coin there and I was speechless. I turned the coin over and I noticed that it was minted in the year of my birth. So not only did that coin come, not only was it placed in my left hand, it was minted in the year I was born. And how he came about it, he just went to a craft fair. And there was lots of different stalls, and on one stall there was key rings, and there was one coin there on this key ring, and it was that coin. He went, fuck, that's the coin that Aaron's just been talking about. What do we make of this? It's bizarre.
Yeah.
And
See,
so,
it's funny how sometimes we can wield things into existence, and it just you start to realize that it's easy, and it feels like surreal sometimes, but shit, it really happens if we really put our strong intent to it.
well, when I was doing my business, I was manifesting everything because what I was doing is it's kind of like I want a bigger van. It needs to be a white van, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to have it with my motif on the side. And I used to stand at my bedroom window looking out at my rotten old van under the street light in the dark, and I was envisioning, I was creating, I was manifesting.
That's
About
right.
a month after that, the van was there. I went, fuck. Then I said to myself, well, I'm going to get another one. I'm going to have two vans outside here. Within about 3 months after that, I had two vans. Then I went, fuck, I'm going to get a bigger one. Then I'm going to get two one. And it just went on and on and on. I manifested everything.
Yeah.
And,
Hey,
the,
let me ask you. Oh, good, good. My
no, no,
bad. I
you
didn't
go.
know you were done. Yeah, what I was gonna ask you is what made you want to do that experiment though, or what did you think when you heard about that experiment, like the Dr. Emoto experiment? Because I actually had that interesting uh, curiosity. You know what I'm saying? As I was gardening, but what made you get into that to begin with?
Well, because in many of my videos over the years, I've done this myth busting. I've never
Mm-hmm.
just took anything on board. I have to try
Right,
it myself because if we go through our life believing, 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 and I just believed in, then I'm believing in a fallacy.
right,
Not true to me. I don't discount that rice experiment works in a certain way. But what I said in that video when I'm speaking about it is that we have to take into consideration the person's intention and their belief because it's the belief like
right,
the biologist Bruce Lipton, like he says, it's environment. You put it into the environment, but also then when scientists are doing their research, it's imperative that they don't have a bias or they're not seeking for something because
right.
90% of the time they are going to find only what they are looking for. And
Well,
so,
how do you know? I mean, you just said you were trying to you were into busting,
yeah,
but the thing is, the only reason I asked is how do you know that the one that you said love to didn't rot only because your original intent and you may not have realized it may have been to myth bust that experiment. You know what I'm saying? The reason I say this because sometimes people do things. They think they have an intent, but they actually have an ulterior motive. They have a different intent that they were actually asleep to. So it could have been that your original intent was to myth bust. And the reason I believe in the Dr. Emoto experiment is because when it happens to me, I do it when I'm gardening. There's certain plants I put so much attention to, and then some I ignore, and they end up growing more. But why? Because the environment, in and of itself, is love. You get what I'm saying? So
yeah,
sometimes me wanting that plant to thrive so much more, it's my ego that wants it to strive more, and I give it something called the evil eye. I learned this from my grandmother, who was a witch as well, where when you want something to grow so much, it's coming from ego and not really a spirit, and it's just you're giving it something called the
yeah,
evil eye. That's why they call. So
yeah.
that's why I say, do you think that maybe that rice experiment was because your original intent was to myth bust,
Very
but you were
possibly,
asleep to it?
very possibly. It's a
Yeah.
very good point because
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, well, look, I'm not believing anything. I think I'm going to be open-minded. I'm going to,
Mm-hmm.
be convincing when I say I love it. I'm going to hold it close to my heart so it feels the vibration, and I'm going to feel love.
Yeah.
Go through all that. But then you see that there is something which is subliminal, and the subliminal may have been that I didn't believe in it. And
Right.
it is belief which creates our reality. And
That's
so
right.
then that's why I went on, ranting about you people, oh, it could have been contaminated, oh, the jar could have been dirty. Oh, come on. Surely you can come up with better questions than that, having watched my videos for 5 or 10 fucking years.
Yeah.
What about what we believe? What about environment? I've mentioned Bruce Lipton in the environment, 50 times in the last 5 fucking months, and not one of
Right.
you has said, well, maybe your environment's got something to do with it. And then I start speaking about when I was in Africa in a very negative environment, I got infested. My ego was like this. I was short tempered. I was horrible. And, then I attracted negative energy, which one night shot me in my bed. Just a
Yeah.
random guy. It wasn't anything to do with anything I've been doing. It was just like, there's a white man live there. He's probably got some
Mm-hmm.
money. I'm going to go and get it. And so, but I created that from the universe because I was manufacturing negative energy.
That's right. You see, that's the whole thing. And man should have control of his emotions to some extent. It's so funny you bring that up because I got into an argument with my girl last night, but I also realized that I definitely fed a lot into that shit. You get what I'm saying?
Mm,
That's why I said I stepped out of it and I had to have a talk with her this morning. But you know what's funny though? Um, I was driving today and I got a fucking speeding ticket. And the thing is, I'm a pretty aggressive driver. And normally go a lot faster than I was doing today. But today I was going a lot slower than I normally do, and I got pulled over for speeding.
Right.
But I also noticed that it doesn't have to happen right away. But in actuality, I went to sleep that way. We didn't talk. We got, and we don't fight often. But when we fight, I mean, we usually make up the same day. But I noticed that I went to bed angry with her. We said a lot of mean things to each other, never cursing or disrespecting. We don't go ever to the point where we start saying bad words to each other, but we were pretty aggressive with how we were talking. And I didn't feel good about it. Neither did her. Um, but that happened afterwards. And I stepped back and I said, I look at everything. I'm not a victim to shit. I'm not going to fucking cry about it. But I know I brought that onto myself just from the energy I was carrying. I woke up in a fucked up mood. I started to drive. And normally I'm the type of driver that's very, very aware of everything only because I'm aggressive. Today, I started to think about the shit I did with her yesterday. And boom, it happened where I didn't even see the car. I didn't even see him behind me until he started to go whoop, whoop. And I thought a lot about that. And I'm like, fuck. It's like, see, that's a synchronistic effect. People think that synchronicity just happen when good things happen. No, they happen when it's fucked up too. That was a synchronistic effect for me.
Yeah.
I was in a fucked up flow and a fucked up situation happened to me where now I got to fucking go to court and see how much I got to pay the city for fucking ticket for speeding, which could potentially, put a blemish on my insurance. And yeah, it's just something that drains the system takes from you only because you let the emotion take over. You became an emotional creature when in actuality, and I did it this morning. That's why I told you being a man is, and I guided her out of that hell. I had that talk with her, but and I also told her, I'm like, did you realize what I said? And she's like, you know what? It makes a lot of sense. But I also told her if it made sense to you, that means that you received the information, you grasp it as if, like a sponge. It was something that resonated with you because I wasn't teaching her anything. The important thing is guiding a woman has a lot to do with her realizing that when you talk to her, it's something that she already knows. That's why I said, do you see, if it made sense to you and you're like, oh shit, you're right. I'm not teaching her anything. She has that realizations because she knows that shit already. You gotta see,
Yeah.
there's a difference between knowing, oh, did he teach me something or did he tell me something I already know and I realized it now. That's what I mean by, and that's why I think she appreciates me so much. It's because of that. Because we've had many situations like that, but it's not to say that, because I'm gonna tell you right now, a man could get his ego inflated and say, "Oh yeah, But, bro, my girl has been she grounds me. You know what I'm saying? Because in actuality, we want to look at how men are, and going back outside hunting. Look, I can go out and search for lights. Lights is fucking. You can get lost in lights. At the end of the day, we can look at her as the negative energy. She grounds that shit down for me. She has done that before, and I've realized it. And then that level of appreciation is something that when you give that out, oh, you get a shit, because I believe big in the law of reciprocity, but it doesn't have to be where you're thinking about it. It has to happen where it's in a flow, but it's just happening. It's not like, like when you see a poor person or somebody who needs something and you give it to them, but you're not thinking about it, that's when you know it's authentic. But when you have to overthink it, it's coming from ego. You're like selling it now. Like I had this debate with this vegan YouTuber, and we were talking about. I got into. There's a lot of shit he couldn't roll with me with because he's so fucking like left brain that he could not fucking keep up with me. And I told him, I was like, well, if I told him I don't intentionally want to go eat meat, but let's say if I go to my mom's house and she prepares a dish for me and it's got meat in it, chicken, why would I not eat it? My mom is not thinking of anything else but serving me a dish with a lot of love. You get what I'm saying? But the fact that she's not thinking about it, right? That's when you know it's coming from authentic love. And like I told you, love is a building frequency. My mom's intention was to give me good hospitality in the house, treat me good, make me feel good, so that when it's like she
And
loves
to
me, so
give
she
her
wants to make
boy
me
a
feel good.
healthy meal to make him big and strong, which
That's right. But
we always
it
done.
could be the most unhealthiest meal, but the fact that she prepared it with love, oh, it's the healthiest meal now. Because look,
Yeah.
you got all these vegans, they got all these fucking GMO fucking made foods, but it's all in the interest of a profit. At the end of the day, my mom's cooked meal over these GMO fucking burgers. I mean, which one's going to be healthier for me? You know what I'm saying? There's always a frequency aside from like what you're eating chemically that has got a micro and macro wheel of nutrients. Because even like nutritional value is bullshit. The moment you cook your food, that nutritional value, you think you're paying for what you get, and it's not. You already denature and devalue the protein and nutritional value in there once you apply heat to it, right? Unless you're eating something raw. But at the end of the day, my mom's meal, right, neutralized whatever imbalance, even the animal that died in the slaughterhouse. So much love. And then me, of course, the whole concept of prayer came in where I'm transmuting the energy before I eat, but it's not a God outside of me blessing my food. I'm transmuting the energy because you can't kill energy. You can only transfer, transmute. You put it in you, and you redefine the meaning of everything you just did right there in real time. You understand? We have this much power, but
Yeah.
people don't realize that. Even with situations in the world, they notice how the news and the algorithm wants to pump war happening. All these things happening outside in the world. I mean, shit. I can actually be aware that it's happening, but how much attention and energy? I mean, look, even technology will work for you where if you click on one of those videos, oh, now the algorithm will start pumping even more videos for you, right? It's
Hmm.
like, it's a fuckery. You got to be aware of even the choices you make. Algorithms could work in your favor, but in real time, your choices overall on an impact, we talk about entanglements, they start to present themselves in the same exact way, just like algorithms, only by the choice you made. You get what I'm saying? The attention and decision you took toward that specific moment in time you decided to purchase or pay attention to something.
Yeah. And so, I
Yeah,
mean, I think this thing, it's like I say, it's all mind. And once we realize that it's mind, then you realize that it's malleable because there's
that's right.
nothing set in concrete here. And
Can I pause it and then I'm gonna hit play again so that it doesn't get too long on my end? You can
yeah,
keep playing. Obviously, it doesn't
yep.
affect you, but I'm just gonna pause real quick and then I wanna hit play again. All right. So just give me one quick second. All right, recording saved. So let me go in here real quick and do the same bad boy screen recorder. I'm gonna make sure I hit media and mic. And we're
Hmm.
doing a countdown. 3, 2, 1. Boom. We're live again,
Yeah,
baby. All right,
right,
go ahead.
yeah,
Go ahead. I'll
yeah.
let you finish.
Yeah,
Only
so
because my end is a little tricky.
yeah, but because it's all mind,
Mhm.
once we realize that, and once we, the whole thing is, you see, if I'm ever gonna upset anybody with my flamboyance or my ego and my self-proclaimed godliness, then it's going to be a Christian, or
Mhm.
because or maybe a Muslim, because their God is somewhere else, and it's not them and it's not me, and it's some mystery. And I'm like, well, I think the universe is mysterious enough without creating more mystery. And
Yeah.
I'm happy being conscious, and because there hasn't never been a single human being ever that could even come close to expressing what consciousness is, then that to me has to be God. I made a video, and it's kind of like the best fucking video you will ever watch. It was that one. And what I said was, look, they built this Large Hadron Collider, 17 kilometers long, and they wanted to find the God particle called the Higgs boson, because this guy called Higgs said that this particle called the boson, it's the thing that glues everything together. And they found this boson particle when they did it, and I'm like, well, look, I mean, these people are supposed to be intelligent. All the money that's gone into that because they want to find God. I'm like, well, it makes much more sense to me if you look at what is looking for God first. Ask
Mhm.
yourself, what's looking for God? And they go, oh, the brain. No, 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 no. More fundamental. Consciousness, yes. Well, to all you scientists, all you PhDs, and all you trillions of dollars, do you know what consciousness is? No. Do you know where it comes from? No. Do you know anything about it? Well, we have it. Is that all you know? Yes. Well, doesn't it make more sense that that thing is probably God? It's the thing that you're looking for God with. But what they've done is, you see, they've forgotten all about what they're looking for God with. Doesn't that sound fucking ridiculous?
Yeah. I heard you say in a video um, that scientists can't discover God because look how they're looking for God. They're looking for God through technology, right? Can you go a little bit more into that? And I can hear you. Just give me a second. I'm gonna step out
Yeah,
here 1 second, but answer that if you want.
yeah. Well,
I can
simply
hear you.
because the thing that they should be establishing first and foremost is the thing that they're looking for God with. And if they can't um, categorize, assess, and write equations about and do experiments which always will give you the same thing, then I would have thought that would have been the first port of call.
Right.
It's about I don't know, just I can't even put words together how stupid it is. But the thing is, you see, when you look at it, you go, well, look, all these people, they have a vocation. They're a scientist of some sort. They have bought into the fiction. They put absolutely every ounce of investment into that fiction. And it's like Neil deGrasse Tyson when he was asked, "Have you ever taken psychedelics?" Oh no, 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 no. Will you ever? No, 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 no. And the guy goes, "Why?" Because from all accounts, it expands your consciousness. You see incredible things, and a person with your intelligence, surely you'd have something to say about it. Oh, I would never take it. Why? Because I don't want to break this miracle of a machine. You know, and like the person interviewing him said, well, nobody has ever had it broken. They may have what considers a bad trip, but no trips are bad. They're all good. Some of them are just uncomfortable for the ego. But when you look at people like that, I say, in my infinite wisdom, the reason why people like Richard Dawkins, Neil deGrasse Tyson, and any other of the so-called intellectuals, the reason why they don't want to take psychedelics is because they've invested their whole lives into the fiction, and they're terrified that the rug is going to get pulled out from underneath their feet, and they will know where the fuck they are and what the fuck to do for the rest of their lives, because they would see in an instant that everything that they believed was true is not. It's a fiction and it's premised in ego. When the ego dies in a big psychedelic entheogen experience, then you are the cosmos. And all of a sudden,
Yep.
what's Tyson going to be telling anybody? Where's he going to go? If he starts talking about that, there wouldn't be a single person that's going to offer him a job. And everyone's going to go, Neil deGrasse Tyson, he took some DMT and now he's gone insane. No, no, the guy's fucking woke up. You are all insane. You're all fucking mental. You're all mental cases. Mental, because it's all mind, you see. That's what they are. They're all mental cases. They're all mind. Once you get out of the mind, you get into the spirit, and then you see as clear as a bell what all this thing is.
Right. Right.
And so
So
I look at things in such an elementary way that seems so genius because I can't fathom, you know, I just say, oh, look, Richard Dawkins, you reckon there's no God, and all of your life, do you know who he is, by the way?
right, he's the guy that was in that wheelchair.
No, no,
He was handicapped.
that's Stephen Hawking. That's
Oh, Richard Hawkins.
Richard Dawkins is a
I
biologist.
don't know who Richard Dawkins.
And
Yeah, I don't know who he is.
he's British, and he's our most renowned atheist, and he's been on
Mm.
TV all over the place defending atheism, and he's always, matched against Catholics or Christians, and he's always putting his, tuppence worth forward to denounce, religion, and people have said, well, Richard Dawkins, you should take some psychedelics because if you did, then you'd have a whole different view on this. But they won't, simply because it would devastate absolutely everything that they stood for. All of their work and everything they've ever said and done would be just worthless in an instant because it
Right.
would transform their thoughts and their world. And so this is it, you see. And so people are clinging on with white knuckles to the fiction. And anybody that's invested all of their lives into school and college, university, and then they've gone into science and they've done this and they've done that and they've wrote a few papers. Well, they're so deeply seated in the fiction they could never let go of it. And so it's these people who are looking for God in a particle when they
Mhm.
don't even know what the God is in between their ears or all around them. The God that created the cosmos, the God that created the earth. And if they don't think that, then I would say, well, what else have you got? The only thing you scientists have got is fucking Darwinism. And even Darwin says that, if the in between fossil can never be found, then my theory is worthless. An in between fossil has never been found. In
Mhm.
160 years since he wrote that book, the in between bit, the missing link, has never been found. And yet the whole world clutches onto that as fast as fucking super glue, because there's nothing else. Because if they let go of those, then they end up in the abyss. They end up in pure consciousness realizing the fiction. And so you
Mhm.
see, the whole world is invested so much in ego, so much in the material world. And this is why there's always been an energy and a conspiracy behind poo pooing spirits. Why do you think all these governments all over the planet ban psychedelics? It ain't because they care for you and they don't want any harm to come to you. They don't give a fuck, because they allow you to smoke yourself to death. They'll allow you to drink yourself to death. They'll allow you to eat fucking burgers and fries and coke yourself to death. But they don't want you to take some entheogen which makes you see God, or makes you feel like you're God, or puts you in the realm of God. No, 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 no. That's far too terrifying. They want to control you. So again, everything is just so simple to me. I just see it all fucking elementary. This place is a joke. It's a joke through and
Aaron,
through.
when you say they're trying to find God in a particle, what's in that particle? What's a particle?
Well, when we look at what they tell us about particles, about atoms and quarks and quavers and all these different sorts of stuff, well, as far as I'm concerned, it's all gobbledygook. It's all fiction, because it's not a
No.
part of my reality. But
All right.
and so therefore, I would say, this is why I'm always dissing science. I'm saying that science, the Muppets. I don't believe in a single fucking thing. I believe in the greatest thinkers on the planet when they have had no investment in anything. You see, all these scientists have got an investment. They've invested their life, and somebody's employing them and paying them for their, $1 million house and this, that, and the other. So of course they've got to keep defending it. But the likes of Plato, Aristotle, Parmenides, and all the rest of the philosophers who never, had a horse in any race, they all died broke, Ziggy. They were invested in fucking nothing except finding the truth. They're the
Well,
people
mhm.
I invest in, and they're the
Yeah.
people that I have a great connection to, intuitively and rationally. It's what makes the most sense. Plato
Yeah.
says everything's just a fucking idea. It's an idea in consciousness. He said that 2,000 years ago.
Yeah, I've got a little bit of a different perspective than you do, and I think this is why I like talking to you. And I think that you can appreciate that we both see things a little bit differently, and that's how two scientists can actually try to see how they can
Yeah.
mesh things together, right? Because I never would like somebody to always agree with me, and I'm sure you don't want
Yeah.
that. But
No.
I just disagree with you on the drug part. Um, this is the problem with the drugs that I have. When we say scientists are trying to find God in technology, I look at drug as a form of technology. Like I even started this video when I said that the plants are an artificial intelligence, everything just seems to be happening. The problem I have is that the same way, let's say if they found God, have they truly found God? And is there like a merging where they say this is within them when they're looking at something outside of themselves and they're observing that particle as whatever that particle is as God, right? When I see somebody doing drugs, it's giving them an experience, but it's showing a lot of them. And then now, when I heard you say that there was a guy named Richard Hawkins who basically talks about atheism, he's so polarized that the people who've done drugs are telling him to do drugs to kind of get him out of that polarized side of what he's looking at. But it doesn't mean that the people who did drugs ever really truly found God. See, the whole thing is that I've never done drugs, but I've had some fucking. I mean, I definitely want to talk about my experiences. That's another thing. But to find God is a realization that requires certain energy and breath work. But like again, it's really finding that Virgin Mary, but bringing that energy up, that consciousness. It's all done through breath work. Your body already makes these chemicals that we're using or trying to use outside of us in the form of dimethyltryptamine, which is basically DMT for short. ayahuasca retreats and all these things. This is the problem: is that people don't know how to, again, you see how I told you the original intent behind the rice experiment, where we say, how do we know what the original intent is? Are you really there in that retreat to find God, or are you just looking to get high or get a rush to some extent? They think they're trying to find God, but there's no original intent of childhood curiosity that's coming from a pure space, because children are the only things that are pure, or the Virgin Mary, pure, uncorrupted, right? We
Well,
gotta fight. I'm gonna finish. I'm not gonna make it long. That virgin is in us that's never been touched. The whole thing is, nobody, I feel like a lot of people haven't touched that. And for you to really truly say, I found Christ in man, right? It has to, the stories are telling you something, but it's all allegory. It's the greatest never ending story about us, right? The whole thing is, a lot of people take it literal. But when I look at drugs, for example, these plants are outside of myself, and unless I have truly purified, or I'm coming from an original pure space, I'm just having another experiment, another experience. But is the bad trips is basically because the drug is showing you what you have in you, what you are, and you're afraid of yourself because you've never faced those demons. And unless you truly face those demons or overcome that fear, which is an emotion that you're supposed to overcome, which is an illusion, and that's the reason why even humanity, time, the feminine energy, which is the negative energy, but not to say that it's bad. It's just something you overcome. The humanity overall, white people, black people, Spanish, Chinese, that's negative energy. That's why they say la humanidad, humanity, stand up for yourself. You get what I'm saying? And then you're depending on like, and to not even get religious, we can look at it from just the physical shit. The government people, that's people's god. Oh, we want to vote for who's in power. But like, if that even fucking matters, it don't matter who the fuck you vote for. They're gonna put whoever the fuck they want in there. The important thing they need is your participation, your energy, and your attention to
yeah,
keep that system going. It doesn't matter who you voted for. It's just like a sports team. You can have the NFL or UFC, because I don't watch. I mean, I watch UFC, but it don't matter. You could be rooting for one. There could be another team rooting for the other. You're both paying tickets, right? And on top of that, you're paying with interest, because you're paying attention to it, because you're interested in the opponents, right? So now that's the biggest currency on the planet. It don't matter who wins or loses. The organizations, the leaders, the bosses, the ones who own that shit are the ones that are winning. They took money, they took your attention, your currency, and a lot of people even go out and start fighting over this shit. I've seen people with soccer teams go to fucking war, and even like, like really fucking like, there's like some serious shit that happens. People
yeah.
get locked up, a bunch of shit. All that shit is harvested somewhere. It's beyond the physical. Something else is really enjoying all these fruits. You're being fruitful and multiplying. That's kind of like how I look at it from the Genesis story. And I'm gonna finish now. So when I look at, let's say, the DMT, the drugs and whatnot, if you're not in tune with yourself, you're having an experience. You are in a state where you feel this bliss and nirvana. But when I had this experience, Aaron, I'm telling you, man, this is why I even said it in the other video. I didn't feel nothing. I had no body. It was just like, it felt blissful only because I've never felt that light in my life. And the word light, look at when they say, oh, I found God, I found the light. It's light, but you feel so fucking light. Like, the vibration is, you could say vibrating high, you're light, you lit yourself up because you turned yourself on. That's why I said the difference between making love and having sex. You could get turned on sexually in a lustful way, or you could get turned on like really turning on your buttons, pushing your buttons and getting that fucking appliance going, and your whole body becomes like some fucking cosmic light that it's beyond the words, it's beyond explanation. You get what I'm saying? So that's why I started to realize what actually, when people say, oh, God is dreaming us, or like humanity, we're all in a dream, like everything outside of me are all spirit guides. Like, you're a spirit guide, right? Because you're a spiritual being. Everything is spirit here. But once we realize that everything's spiritual, that's when you start to you really have a blueprint to how the physical actually works. So for example, let's say if you were born in the time where Adolf Hitler was born, but I happen to be a lot younger than you, and you tell me about Adolf Hitler, well, shit, I mean, I never saw Adolf Hitler. You did, so I take your word for it. You could give me a version of Adolf Hitler that was bad or good, though, right? Because there's different conspiracy theories now online saying that Hitler was actually the good guy, right? So now what do? You have to basically look at the virtues and principles of that individual, what that individual represented, what he did it for, what reasons. Why do I even bring this up? Because you said that, reality subjective, but also reality is it's sort of a simulation, right? You're here by yourself. There's nothing outside of you but reflections and mirrors of you, right? So all these ideas, for example, I don't know anybody though who was born around the age of Jesus Christ, but I know of this character that everybody in the planet knows about, right? What does that mean? That's only an idea or an energy that I can tap into the same way Lucifer, any demon, Belial, right? Or any angel, Gabriel, Raphael, Uriel. All these are just ideas that I can tap into based on external knowledge I have of them. But unless you truly embody this idea or currency, then some people, I've heard some people online say that they've worked with certain demons and that the demon was so nice and whatnot. And then other people will say that the demon was super aggressive, right? Well, here's the thing though, everybody has something very important that's called the nervous system. And this is the electrical system of the body, but everybody's nervous system is fucked up because of fear. It's just worldwide fear that the media pumps to you, the fear of making sure that you keep your house afloat, your family and business, everything going, perfectly. And then you got this anxiety, all the attention's going like away from what your actual true purpose here on the planet is. And it doesn't. And I made a video on this. What is the purpose of life? What is your purpose? You know what I'm saying? What is the meaning of life to you? It's just energy flowing to and through you. It doesn't matter if you're in the ghetto and I'm in the fucking beautiful suburbs or whatnot. I mean, do I know what to do in that environment to begin with? If you're in the ghetto, you better know what the fuck to do, right? You could become a gang leader, but you know what to do in your environment. You acclimate yourself there. If not, you'll be somebody's bitch. Same way if you're in jail, you have to know what to do in that environment. If you were taken out of your environment, especially like if you committed a crime and you went into, like they took you and put you in jail, now you gotta know how to conduct yourself in that environment, right? But that's the whole thing. It's just like if we're animals and animals know what to do in their environment and we're animals, like there's some people who are in their immediate environment and they don't even know what to do in their environment. They feel lost. They don't know what to do. A bird isn't told to go fly south for the winter. It just knows that shit, right? A fucking cat, you leave him outside, he knows how to survive and strive if they're not taken care of. They say any animal, they know what to do in nature. But us, for example, since we're so ingrained in this artificial system, we don't know how to conduct ourselves in this environment. We always look for something outside of us to give us answers or to depend on. You get what I'm saying? And that's the whole thing. When I say God mode, it's authority. What if once you know and you feel this like in your heart, because the heart is the projection of the world you're in. It's just that people are living up here. You know what I'm saying? And this human intellect is not all there is. It's a different level of intelligence because the heart has neurons. That's why Jesus pointed to the heart. And if you really decode that, you're having a heart brain coherence. But if you can disconnect, this is your subconscious mind. This is what the kids have, an open mind, but the open mind is actually the open heart. This is how they're getting programmed. Fear, excitements, whatever it may be, it's all stored here. It's stored here. You know what I'm saying? And then once you grow up, you kind of like stop here and now you're up here and you think you have to do so many things. That's the problem.
Yeah.
You think you even have to do something. Well, I don't have to do shit. I can just lay back and do nothing. But you think you have to do something because you're de-evolving if you're not. But that's the whole trickery though. Energy has to move though. I'll let you cut in because I'm gonna get into something else about energy and whatnot. Because there was another thing. I know I went to DMT and went into that, but I want you to tell me what you think of that. Because when it comes to the drug part, I look at it like steroids. And I made a couple of videos 4 years ago. When I heard you talk about that, I had to go back and look at them. I made a separate folder. And if you want, you can look at them and give me your perspective on it when you get a chance. But I'd be very interested in knowing, because I think I channeled those videos because I don't even remember saying half of the shit that I said in those videos. But then I'm hearing it now and I feel like my future self told me that shit in that time that I needed to make those videos 4 years ago. Just type in Zigzagzilla and psychedelics, and I got two parts. I talked about the Amazon rainforest, where at that time where they were talking about the Amazon rainforest that they were burning. It's a 2-part video, and I got a lot of interesting info there. And if you have anything to ever add on to that, I would definitely love to hear your point of view. But when it comes to the drugs, I look at it like steroids. You have your own testosterone. You have your own way of like producing whatever gains you have, or you can manipulate it through steroids and enhance the system. But it all always comes at a cost. You get what I'm saying? That's why I think with Neil deGrasse Tyson, he started to say that it's going to mess his machinery. And I'm only playing devil's advocate here because, again, I'm trying to see where we can find common ground here. But I feel like the drugs, if you don't know what you're doing, I've seen people lose their mind, which necessarily isn't a bad thing, right? If you lose your mind, it's a way to really find yourself, right? Because your mind could be a tool or it could be something that fucks you up.
Yeah.
And then I want you to answer me what you think about thought overall. Like, what do you think about the thinking part overall about man? So I'll let you get into all that, and then I'll leave the floor to you, bro. You know, I'm
Oh,
long-winded sometimes.
yeah, yeah, no worries. The DMT thing. Now, the thing is, I mean, if we haven't experienced anything, then we don't have an opinion on it, because it's a subjective experience. And if anyone says to me, if I took DMT, if I took magic mushrooms, what do you think I would get? And I'd be like, well, I'd need to psychoanalyze you, for, let's say a minimum of 10 hours before I could remotely begin to see what your mind is going to create. Because what these things do, they enhance what you are, as an egoic person. And so,
Just like any drug, right?
yeah, yeah,
Because even alcohol, if you're an angry person, you could be a real angry drunk afterwards,
yeah,
right?
you get all that, but let's say that you've read my book, and so you know that I've had like 30 experiences on psilocybin and 200 on DMT, and the psilocybin, it just lets you know that the whole world is alive and it's breathing. There is no doubt about that, and I have always in my life I've been attracted to stones and rocks, and every time I go to an old building made out of sandstone or whatever it is, I've got to touch it, I've got to look at the artwork that's gone into it, because I think there's a sentience in this building, and these buildings carry this an energy of the builders, and of the intention behind them, everything like that. And then in recent times, the penny dropped in my mind, and I went, "Hang on." They say that water has memory. In my book, there's a scientific report about water having memory, and then this is the whole thing about Dr. Emoto, that it has emotions as well. And then I'm thinking, well, I reckon that everything does, and so we know that silicon chips, silica is sand basically. We know quartz and all these things. We know magnetic tape can hold data. Why on earth can't rock? And I'm sure that rock does. It's got all the information of the cosmos going back for billions of years. And what scientists are now just starting to work on, Ziggy, and this is a really important thing, is that they're starting to look at what other stone or crystal formations they can actually extract information out of, let alone
Mm-hmm.
put it in. And so there's a whole lot of stuff that's got yet to be discovered there. Now, the psilocybin tells you that the world is a spirit, and it gets you super in touch with that, and you never look at the world the same again, because you know it's living and it's breathing in everything. The DMT, it takes you completely outside of your ego. You become disassociated with this human life, and your awareness. Only there's no ego there at all. It's only awareness, aware of what you are looking at. Most of it you can't make head or tail of, but there's a subliminal message there. And in the first big breakthrough of DMT, I said that when I was in that space told me that it's me, it's always been me, and there'll never be anything else but me. When I came back from that, I have to question
But do you
what.
think it was? Do you think it was because it shut down the mental chatter? Is that the reason why?
It completely takes you outside of the ego, and you just go into
Mm,
pure awareness, pure
okay.
consciousness. And in pure consciousness, that is the fundamental premise of the universe. So when you go into that, when you take these things, you know that that's what you are. That's God. And then when these things, you see,
So
millions of, go on, go.
yeah, I'm gonna ask you. I just didn't want to lose my thought. But so then, is that something that you can enhance without the drugs, like that focus to basically chop out the mental chatter? Because the whole point to meditation is basically like a focus exercise, right? To kind of get you to practice blocking that out. Even people, like, you see, I could see this in real time where people can't even meditate. I can meditate in the middle of Times Square, but
Yeah.
people need to be in silence or in
No,
quiet. But
but
it
no,
necessarily it depends on your focus, right?
right, depends on your focus. But the DMT world, again, is actually another world. Are you familiar with
Mm.
Terence McKenna? Have you listened to much of his stuff?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
well,
yeah,
how he speaks about it, there is actually a sentience, an intelligence, a consciousness. There's a whole new world there, and it's a very, very intelligent world, vastly more intelligent than the human ego. And when we go into that world, we can be mocked and we can be laughed at in a loving kind of way, because what the DMT is doing, it's like you don't know you're having a human experience. You don't know that you're us, you're DMT, you're God, but you've got amnesia, and you just think you're Ziggy sitting in a car in
yeah,
freaking,
yeah,
in America, and this and the other. Concept. You've got all these concepts, and you think it's a reality. It's not a reality. Take the
yeah.
concepts away. There's nothing there. When you enter into the DMT world, it's the most beautiful thing. The DMT, you see, it's almost identical to dopamine, the molecule, and it flushes your brain with the God molecule. This is what Dr. Rick Strassman, he did this experiment with 60 intelligent people from all walks of life, intravenously gave them DMT, and they went
Mm,
into DMT world for about an hour and 15 minutes averagely. Every single one
mm.
came back and they said that was absolutely unbelievable. It's the biggest thing I've ever had in my life. It was wonderful. I wouldn't swap it for the world.
Is
And
this ayahuasca you're talking about, or is
well,
this these two things the same?
the ayahuasca, the main ingredients is DMT.
DMT.
Psilocybin mushrooms is DMT, and pure
Hmm.
DMT. You see, with the pure
What is the
DMT,
difference? Hmm.
just intensity.
Okay.
Yeah, the intensity, and we create DMT. We've got receptors
Yes.
of DMT in our brains, and then when you do heavy breathing, rapid breathing, you can induce your own DMT, and then you can see, bearded men. And then, in actual fact, this guy I saw in the clouds looked very almost identical. It could have been me now with this. And so,
Hmm.
what's going on there, Ziggy? Was I having a vision of me in the future somewhere?
Uh,
Why did I see that? All I saw was his head, and he looks identical to what is without the glasses. And so when
did
I
you ever purge? Did you
sorry,
ever purge when you were in these experiences? Did you ever purge? I hear a lot of people saying that they purge, they vomit, and whatnot.
no, no,
No.
never purged on any of those. The only thing I purged on was on Amanita muscaria.
Yeah.
As soon as you take that with any
That's a
psilocybin,
mushroom, right?
yeah, the red and white mushroom, then you vomit projectile because they've got ibotenic acid, which is a poison. And so you want the muscimol, which gives you all those things I spoke about.
Hmm.
Very, very bizarre. Having other energies, living entities, enter your body and live vicariously through you.
Right.
Just super, super bizarre. And so when I'm saying on my videos to these people, come on, people, stop putting these stupid fucking comments down. You should know better than this now. You've watched me for forever. Even if you've only watched me for 5 months, right? You shouldn't be putting stupid, dumbass comments down like that. You know, and uh, all I say to people is say, well, fucking read this person. Philosophy, read that person about this spiritual thing. Read William James, the great American philosopher and psychologist. Read his book about religious experiences. You can see that people have them all over the world. They are a real fucking thing. And people that have them are super intelligent as much as the next man, and they're respected in their community. We don't have to be woo-woo or just having some sort of drug experience to have these religious experiences. It's
Definitely.
what we are. We're spiritual beings. And,
Yep.
so when my book is published, I've got to find a publisher which is used to dealing with philosophy, psychology, and spirituality, and the psychedelics.
Yeah.
I've got a whole lot of stuff going on in that book. So when
Yeah.
you read that book, what's your general feeling about it? Could you follow it, or was
I
I
followed
right?
everything.
Yeah,
Well, this is the reason why I'm asking you all these questions. You get what I'm saying? Because we've all had different experiences. Don't ever think that I'm like coming on here like challenging you to like debate
no,
you or anything
no,
like
no,
that.
no.
These are things that I do that I look for this in myself as well
Well,
because
yeah, I
again,
want somebody.
don't forget.
You're my
Yeah,
creation because I've manifested you because
yeah,
you're exactly what I want. Somebody who's intelligent, that's had lots of experiences, that's took the time to read my fucking book and
right,
read it, and
right.
then think, hang on, I want to know more about this. I want to question him about that. I want to see you. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's it.
that's
Yeah,
right.
I need to be questioned, and I need to be able
So
to
this is the
express myself.
because when I read your book, I didn't read it. It was an experience. Like you experience a movie, you experience the book. You got to be very, very. See, the thing is, as I'm experiencing the book, again, we come out of body to some extent. You put your soul into that book, so now it's there's a spirit. Every time you read a book, there's a spirit to the book.
Yeah,
So I was experiencing you as I'm reading the book. The whole thing is that I'm now outside of that space and I know what my experiences were. And then now I can actually say, well, let's see what angle, because it's not to be disagreeable with you. It's just that sometimes I may see things one way. Everybody's
yeah,
got different perspectives about life. So when it comes down to like what I got out of the book, of course, all the questions are going to be correlated to what I got out of it. It's just
yeah,
what I'm asking. And if you ever have questions to me, I definitely welcome that. I need to get that as well.
yeah,
But the reason I asked you about the purging, and because I'm gonna tie in my experiences, the purging, and all the toxins in the human body are mainly detoxed by breathing. 70% of your toxins are released through breathing.
right.
Not everybody breathes properly because, for one, it's not even just that their colon's backed up. It's just anxiety and stress. You notice how people are more shallow breathers because they're always under so much pressure. But you
Yeah,
notice how when you relax and you're chill, you're like, you could breathe better. But you notice how people are more tensed up and stiff and rigid, and because they put so much acid in their body or so much emotion, so many things they may be holding on to, it makes you stiff. So they're not breathing properly to begin with, right? But when you breathe, you stimulate certain chemicals like DMT, right? And these type of things, for example, like when it comes down to these times that I told you I was going through like certain periods where I was coming through like spirituality, I'm just saying it for the sake of
yeah.
conversation. You ever hear these spiritual people say, "Oh, I'm getting spirit ascensions"? You know what I'm saying? Like ascension symptoms. You ever hear that shit? And they're
Mm.
like ascension symptoms is like they get a cold or they get like certain. But you know what the thing is though?
Oh, that
Yeah, yeah. Now, yeah, but you hear that. You say, "Oh, I'm
exactly.
getting headaches now in these energies. I'm getting headaches, and I may feel under the weather." But and then the typical person hears that and they manifest a sniffle and whatnot. But in actuality, I noticed that when you get the cold-like symptoms like the flu and whatnot, this is the body's natural purging process. Actually, this is the gold standard in the body's detoxification is actually when you get a cold flu-like symptom. So
Yeah.
when you get like mucus, diarrhea, vomiting, or high fever, what do the doctors tell you to do? They tell you hydrate properly, right? So the
Flush
best
it
thing to
out.
do is just to, right. Now, in a way, though, those are all spiritual experiences. So let's say if you're going to like meditations and whatnot, you may trip your immune system into an immune response only because sometimes there's been energies that I felt going through my body. I don't know if you've ever felt it, that they've been so intense that you're like, and then you come out and you're like all jittery and shit. It's a lot of current that went through you, but you couldn't manage it. That's just you waking up the body to something that it was not ready or designed for. But then you may and people don't notice this. They'll come out with a sniffle or a flu-like symptom later on. They don't know that that's the result of that. It's kind of like when people do shadow work and then all of a sudden their life seems to get chaotic in the beginning, but it's because you're stirring the fucking pot, or you're stirring shit up, and now you're starting to fucking see real shit. Or the creature, the human, is so accustomed to shit. Like you could go into an environment and acclimate to that environment very quickly. But the thing is, sometimes you're not even aware of the shit that you acclimated to, and it doesn't even serve you. So the
Yeah.
moment you do shadow work, now you become aware of the fuckery that you're in, that it appears to be more chaotic only because you're aware of it, but it was always there as chaos to begin with. You get what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Only you're more aware of it now. So when I was going through these experiences, it happened while I was doing breath work, meditation. I started to go through flu-like symptoms, and then that's what little spiritual people say, okay, ascension symptoms, but people don't know what the fuck they're talking about when it says that. When you start breathing properly, you like the heart is a valve. It's not really the pump of the body. The pump is the lungs. That's why when you get pulled over by a cop, they tell you breathe on a breathalyzer, because if you're intoxicated, they want to measure the amount of toxicity in the body through the breathalyzer. So when you're breathing properly, you're even burning fat, and fat stores a lot of toxins in those fat cells. And that's why some people can't even lose like the little mid belly fat and whatnot. I'm like, well, breathe properly. It's like when you exercise. You see, when you exercise, you're forced to breathe properly.
Mm.
It's because you're oxidizing fat, but also Get in a cold ass shower and you'll see what a real true diaphragmatic breath is. All these little things I started to pick up along the way, and it started to give me the same effects as that DMT effect. Not to say that your experiences were wrong because you did the DMT. It's just you chose a path. You know what I'm saying? There's people who do urine therapy. There's people who do extreme long fasts. There's some people who may get that experience just by fucking having trauma. Because trauma puts you in the dark space, right? But out
Hmm.
of darkness comes light. So sometimes being in that dark space, it's not getting lost. Because you could get lost in lights, but you could get lost in the dark too and not be able to come out of that shit, right? And
Yeah.
then sometimes you may find another person that may guide you out of that darkness, and that person was a form of spirit guide to you. That's why sometimes us doing this, and we're doing it from a pure heart space, it can impact somebody else to actually pull them out of that dark space. You get what I'm saying? So I look at everybody as a version and an extension of me. So when I do a video, I say, well, these are my experiences, but don't take them as concrete fact. You got your path. See what works for you. If I go to the gym and work out, working out is a technique. It's a sport, right? Bodybuilding is a sport. If I go work out, I may get a pump doing one way, where if you tweak your form just a little bit, you may get a pump better than me, only because your body's structured differently, or you may have just had a better mind to muscle connection in that area. Or people don't realize that there's also other connective muscles that basically take play, and you may have weaker or stronger points in that spot. It's the same thing with life. You have stronger attributes than me. You may teach me something that I don't know, even though I perceive you to be a fucking idiot. You know what I'm saying? But they're always telling you something. Because it's like me. When I look at trees, trees are very informative. You know what I'm saying? Even when they were talking about, oh, the Amazon jungle's burning. Well, let them fucking burn, baby. They're fucking burning for a reason. In fact, look at trees. You notice how when you cut a tree and you got a trunk, they call it a log, right? And then you see how we got data logs or logs of information. It's
Yeah.
like, bro, through fire, look at Jesus spoke to a burn. I mean, not Jesus, Moses spoke to a burning bush. You get information out of fire. That's why people like candles. They'll do candle gazing and whatnot. Use the elements. It's like, instead of being so fucking like victim mentality towards shit, see what you can see as far as like the brighter side of it. You get what I'm saying? You are already the darkness. Why are you putting dark into something outside of you? Just extract that and see what you can get out of it. When you empower yourself now, where in hence I always say put your oxygen mask on first, oh, you'll be a fucking guiding light for everybody else as well. You understand? And that's how I look at it when it comes down to the drugs, the DMT. It's all a mindset, but I have to really want it and desire it. You get what I'm saying? And I got to be very pure. That's why before you go into these retreats, you notice they tell you no sex, don't eat meat, and meditate a little bit. Oh, why is that? On a light level, they're telling you to be pure before you go into that ayahuasca retreat, so that your ego's a little more numb. Notice how if you fast 3 days, right? Notice how on that third day you're not as hungry as on the second day. You're starting to put the animal to sleep. And I even mentioned when I do gardening, my animal's asleep, right? I'm having a spiritual experience, right? Because in actuality, I'm beyond the physical at that moment. Even though I'm in the physical, appearing to do something physical, I'm actually having a metaphysical experience as I'm gardening, because I forget what time it is. I mean, when you meditate, I've had lost perception of time. When I thought I was in there for 4 hours, it was like 30 minutes only. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? This,
Gardening most
yeah,
certainly is a great meditation.
yeah, or whatever, and whatever you're immersed in. Somebody could be in that state just doing mechanics. You get what I'm saying? Where they lose
Yeah.
perception of time, they forget to eat. It's
Yeah.
still that's why they say everything's spiritual. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? Because we're all spiritual beings. We're in the spiritual realm, and the spirit is your space. You're the soul experiencing it, and it's you. You're experiencing yourself. It's God experiencing itself. Right?
Yeah.
That's how you're God, and the shards, and you're God, but you're the God projecting it without your attention. I mean, you're not. That's what quantum science is. That's one of the things it's like the hardest thing to debunk. The observer, it's a theory, because people don't incorporate spirituality with that science. That's why they say it's a theory. But that observer theory proves to you that that the observer is what matters. That's what determines the whole slit experiment,
Yeah.
and where it goes. You know.
Yeah.
So tell me what you think of that.
What part?
I'm sorry, man. Oh, and you know what? When you said the world's alive, I love that. When you said that when you were in a DMT trip, you said the world's alive. You know, I had this experience when I told you I'm in the garden and I kind of lost myself. I swear to you, man, there was a point where I was observing, because I love morning glories. I don't know if you know what those are. They call them burpees. They come out in the morning. They're like long vines, and
Purple,
you get those
purple.
burpees.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, they come out. It actually, Terrence McKenna talks about that a lot,
One
because
of the
there's a
morning
lot of
glory seeds, you can trip on them.
yeah, yeah, they're LSD. So you know that I was observing and I loved them so much that I swear I was like doing something kind of close to them, but not too close. And I don't know why I felt like everything happened in one harmonious chemistry, where a certain wind came in, and the vine kind of like flew, and I felt like it bristled through me, but I felt like it was hugging me. And I'm like, wow, in that instant, I felt like the experience was alive. Like I was literally, it was alive. You get what I'm saying? So that's why I had an experience that the world is alive. Look at that, man. I saw the videos on you creating that. That's beautiful, man. That's beautiful, and that came out of your creation. You know?
You see, these are what's called a green man,
Yeah.
and they have the leaves over the faces, and sometimes
Hmm.
they have horns. This is representation of life and new life.
Right.
And the green man is representation of fertility, which is
Yeah.
curious, and it's not the woman. But this is pagan mythology, religion for the northern hemisphere for thousands of years, and this is
Yeah.
what I am at heart. And this is why I've just spent so much time in the natural world because I'm a pagan.
Yeah. That topic of drugs is very interesting to me, though. I've never done them,
What
but I'm not saying I would never do them.
what I
I'm
would
open to
suggest
doing them.
Yeah, I would suggest that the easiest thing to do and the thing that is going to cause you the least anxiety is DMT because you're in and you're out. And your ego disappears as soon as you take the first draw. Ideally, you've got to take enough in your lungs, which is going to give you this so-called breakthrough, which kill the ego. You go straight through into DMT world, and you see beings there and all different sorts of whatever. And if you do it open-eyed like I do, then instantly you see a simulacrum come over the world.
Mhm.
All the buildings just turn into Lego, and everything is absolutely pristine. And even a swamp is the most beautiful thing you've ever seen in your life. Why? Because judgment is gone. Judgment alongside the ego is completely gone, and you just go into what is, and everything's wow. You look at this world, it's the Garden of Eden. I swear to God, the Garden of Eden, heaven and hell are states of mind. I've been in hell and I've been in the Garden of Eden. And so, I believe I can speak with authority on these things, having, experienced them. Not only experiencing them, but reading a prolific amount on them and putting it all together in a very rational and sensible way.
Mhm.
So let me just ask you this. The whole premise of that book being closer to God is my route to God. Do you think there's any facet of that book which is remotely delusional? And I'm asking you absolutely honestly because of a few people who has lost it now, and they don't know what. Some people say, I can't work out whether you're a genius or whether you're a nutter. Because they're not in my consciousness. So, as an intelligent person, would you think there's any facet in there where you would consider I'm remotely delusional?
No, absolutely not. See, the whole thing is those are your, and the thing is, I respect people's uh let's say we call them subjective experience. In scientific terms we call them anecdotal claims, right? See,
Yeah,
the whole thing is that people discard anecdotal claims because they said they're not rooted in logic, and you would have to depend on scientific studies to prove if it's true. But that's the whole thing. Now we discard ourselves to rely on something outside of ourselves,
yeah,
and it's like you don't matter. What the fuck was the point? What's the point of me being here then?
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
Doing
yeah,
all
there.
these experiments if we don't
Yeah.
matter.
So yeah, I don't. I look. I sometimes I see a schizophrenic person, and I ask myself, well, how do I know that person's not insane? And how do I know I'm the one that's insane? And meanwhile, we look at that person as fucking nuts. But if you look at a schizophrenic person, they've got a higher concentration of DMT in their urine than a person who doesn't have schizophrenic. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So those are things that science somehow doesn't like dive into. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? But how do I know that that person is not actually like people who have dementia? I spoke to this lady, and it really made me think, man. I was in Tennessee, and she told me, she was like, man, I'm about to lose my dad to dementia, and he's close to dying, but in his mind he's got a brand new truck, he's got a fucking big ass house. And I'm like, well, where you live with him? He's like, yeah,
Here's the
he's in my
wrong
house, but
man.
I live. no, but check this out. She goes, oh yeah, and we live in a fucking single wide trailer. You know what I'm saying? And he thinks he's got a brand new truck and a brand new house. And in my mind, I'm like, I started to think, I'm like, well, he's about to die. How do I know? How do we know that this individual didn't? It's first of all, we're supposed to create our reality, right?
Yeah,
How do I know that this individual ain't gonna die more harmonious than somebody who's dying here, all perfectly sane and shit, and their life's all out of fucking control? But
yeah,
meanwhile, we look at that person. I would never want to be in that position. But how do you know that that position is not the position of like the way that we call heaven on earth? That person's already there. You know what I'm saying? His physical person might maybe not here, but maybe
all
he is here.
spirit in heaven is most
Oh,
desired, whatever, in his own mind before he even gets there. He's creating where everything's going.
exactly. And there's some people who believe in Jesus so much that they say that they saw the light, they saw Jesus when they got there. And
Yeah,
yeah, because when you're there, you're already you're in the mental realm. That's why I said there's layers to like that process, in my opinion. I'm not saying that that's concrete fact, but we're having deaths here all the time. You know what I'm saying? If I would have had an argument with my girl where we broke up, I would have deaded that relationship. That would have been a physical death to some extent to that relationship. You're here in this realm. You have a relationship to life. Life is flowing to and through you, right? But what is your relationship to life? How do you treat life? How do you treat yourself first, right? Because life will treat you how you treat yourself first. Love, love for others, but you got to love yourself first. It's got to exist in you first. So life is trying to express itself to and through you. Life wants you to be as fucking far out as possible. You get what I'm saying? But a lot of people are fearful of what others may think. That's why I don't. When I see you ranting, I'm like, man, not everybody could do that. Not everybody does that because everybody's in their fucking ego. And I guess you put your ego to the side and you even said, I don't care. I just fucking talk on camera and rant. Nobody fucking, maybe nobody likes to listen to that shit, but who gives a fuck, right?
yeah.
But you just do what you got to do. You get views, but again, it could just be for pure entertainment, but fuck, who cares? You know what I'm saying? The point of it is you're getting views. You know, you put your message out. It's for whoever wants to get it and use it as a tool, or it could be used as something where you'll attract more trolls. However it may be, you swim in those waters. And just like I said in my videos, I said, if you're gonna play God, well then you better be responsible for the baggage that comes with. Life will test you. It will start showing you like if somebody who wants to be a millionaire, right? The universe may fucking present to you a situation where I got a fucking speeding ticket, I get a big ass bill, and then all of a sudden I'm complaining about that. I'm like, the universe, let's say the universe was exterior to me. Well, the universe may say, well, bitch, you want to be a millionaire, but look how you react to a fucking stupid ass speeding ticket, a bullshit ass bill you're getting. A millionaire doesn't complain about that shit, just pay the bill and get the fuck on moving, right? Same thing with everything else in general. How do you respond and react to things outside of you? It just depends. How the way you respond and react and the words you use determines the path you take and the outcomes that may come. Again, when I talked about my girl and I got into the argument, I fucking manifested a bitch ass cop giving me a speeding ticket. I'm not gonna complain about it. I know I was aware in that moment. I brought this shit out to myself. Even the lights, the red and blue lights, those are red and blue pills I saw, like the fucking red and blue pill the Matrix uses. Bro, I don't know. Everything just started flashing behind me, but it flashed in my mind the same way. I'm like, I'm doing this motherfucking shit. I looked at the cop, and then he was like, do you know why I pulled you over? I'm like, no, I'm never going to incriminate myself. He's like, well, you're going 80 on a 65. And I usually go 90, by the way.
Right.
and then I go, well, I'm on my way to, because I took a course. I told you in neuromuscular therapy. I'm like, well, I'm on my way to school. So he took my license, came back, gave me the ticket. He's like, I appreciate your, your cooperation throughout the whole thing. Because I was very courteous to him. And I was like, I mean, did you tell me how fast I was going? And he goes, yeah, you were going 80 on a 65. I was like, all right, well, have a good day. And I just kept it moving. But
Yeah.
that's it. You know what I'm saying? I completely forgot about it afterwards.
Mm.
But I don't even know where I was going with that. I'm sorry I ran on
No,
since I
no,
say I'm
this is
long-winded.
the
But
point. How you're thinking. Well, look, what just sprung to my mind is that you all of a sudden you was in the Neo sort of realm because you asked
ah,
yourself, "Am I taking the red or am I taking the blue? How am I going to deal with this?" Because look,
yes, there you go.
beautiful thing about it is it's so symbolic. You've got red and blue flashing behind you. It's telling you, are you going to go with the Matrix? Or are you going to go with the Dream? Which are you going to go with, mate? Because if you go with the Matrix, fuck, officer. Oh, I wasn't doing the, oh, if I can't afford the, if I get another, oh, no, this, or do you just go with the dream thing? Do you take the blue pill? Which is it? Which is the Matrix and which is the dream? I've forgotten.
The red one is the woke one, and the blue one is the fucking dream, like stayed in here
Right,
in the
yeah.
Matrix.
Well, which one do you take? I mean, personally,
I decided to take no drugs. I just decided to take no drugs. I just decided to just keep moving and leave the pills back there, and I stayed neutral, man.
but the mentality, to take the mentality on, do you want to stay egoic or do you want to stay spirit? Now, for me, I would have looked at that and I would have gone, well, I don't care about speeding or fine or anything like that, because I've had loads of these in my life and they've never affected me anyway. And I've always had the
Yeah,
money to pay. I've always had copious amounts to pay. So the fine's never been a problem. And I went to court on one occasion, and on our license system, if we have more than 12 points, you get a ban. Now, for every
yeah,
speeding ticket, you get 3 points, and if you're going over a certain limit, you'll get 6 points. I went to court one day with 22 points on my license, and I just pleaded hardship. I said, well, look, I'm in a job. It's high stress. I've always got to be here. I've got to be there. I've got to please my customers. I forget how fast I'm going. It's so easy. I was driving Jaguar at the time. It's so easy, when you're on the phone and this was before it was banned to be, on your phone, and you all of a sudden, you're doing 50 and a 30. And the guy just said to me, okay, well, we won't take your license because we realised, your business is ruined. You will fine you like £150. And I was earning £2,000 a day. So what am I going to bother about a parking ticket or fine? The only inconvenience to me was having to go to court.
yeah. Me too.
So the thing is, if you always look at the positive side and think, well, I might meet somebody interesting along the way to the court. I might meet somebody that's going to have a business opportunity to me. Always think positive. Don't ever think that something is negative, because when you're in this spirit realm, there's nothing negative. There's only ever your interpretation of it. And you see,
Right.
my interpretation of life, I've always been the proverbial optimist. And so when somebody says to me, do you think the glass is half full or half empty? I'll go, it can never be half anything. It's always going to be full. If it's only half full of water, then it's going to be half full of air also. So the glass is full. I don't look at things and they say, oh, yeah, we got to choose. Why do you have to choose? No, I'm not choosing. The glass is always full. I'm not even delving into this negative facet of loss or I don't have or hardship. I spend money like I'm a millionaire, and I'm just spending, spending, spending. Every day I've got something coming from Amazon or from eBay. And this week alone, I've spent £100 on feeding the birds and the squirrels and things like that. I just spend, 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 and I don't even consider how much money I've got in my account, because I know that I'm never going to go poor, because it's not my destiny to go poor.
Yeah,
It's like I said
yeah,
in the videos. It says, the universe is catering. I get universal credits.
yeah. And you know what? The money is energy. It's just like if it flows out, it comes right back in. I never spend money. I actually like to say I circulate money. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? I'm not gonna lie. I sometimes spend it on things that I
Yeah, because when you
somebody would
say
be like, it's
spent,
pointless.
something, it's the
Uh,
energy spent is
it's
gone,
gone.
isn't it?
It's gone.
Because
Yeah.
it's never gone. It's just a flow. Yeah, it's in the
You
constant
know, and
stream.
I do uh give myself certain luxuries. You know what I'm saying, that somebody else may not care about. Like I spent, not spent, but I circulated. I don't know. It's just
Yeah,
fucking
yeah,
kidding.
yeah.
But I circulated about $2,000 on a lift kit and tires for my Jeep just because I fucking felt like it. I don't know
Yeah,
why. It just, and I had my Jeep like that in pieces. I mean, just like basically regular for a while. But back in the day, I used to street race. And I used to, that's why I said I had a lot of speeding tickets back in the day, but I used to put a lot of money in my car. I always wanted to have a fly car. For some reason, a vehicle to me, and I had some fucking retard in your fucking comment saying that I'm in a car. They call it a fucking a car ego or some shit like that. I don't know, even
right.
know what the fuck that means. But the reason I'm in this place is because my house is, I have a 10-year-old and I have a bunch of animals, and it's very distractive. And when I do videos, I'm almost in channel, like I'm very focused.
Yeah.
And sometimes even putting a thought in my mind kind of puts me off track, and I'm like, where the fuck was I going with that? So I really don't like to think too much, and I don't like to plan videos too much, because then I won't even fucking do it. That's why
Yeah.
when you and I spoke, you're like, "What do you want to talk about?" I'm like, "I don't fucking know. Let's just start fucking
Yeah.
talking." And
Just start
look,
talking.
we've done that 3 times, and we've done 3 hour videos, and we don't fucking plan shit. We just talk,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
we could talk for 6 hours, I think, if we wanted to.
Yeah.
But that's because there's good chemistry, there's harmony, there's good. And even if let's say if we were discussing, but we don't see eye to eye. I find these as perfect opportunities to sharpen the blade. Like,
Yeah.
when you're in an octagon and you're sparring with somebody, what are you doing? You're getting better, but you're not enemies with that person. Or you can look at it one or two ways. I can go in an octagon and I can be a professional mixed martial artist, but you got to have the spirit of a true martial artist where there's never bad blood. You're always going to shake hands at the end, even though it appeared you were trying to take each other's head off. Now, that's true love because it was basically coming out of love. There's trash talking, but then now you could be in a street fight where there's bad blood, and you really are trying to take the person's head off, but you're not going to shake hands at the end. You got an enemy for life, right? There's a
Mhm.
big difference. So when you debate, or when you like, I don't like debating where it's not rooted out of love. I don't really get nothing out of that. The way I like to look at it is that I go into with somebody like you, and it helps. The mind is a fucking muscle. It could be used against you. Like, the mind could fucking play tricks on you and start going against you, or it could be used for your reality to get better. That's where I was gonna ask you what the point of the thinking man is. Like, the thinking for me, for example, is very useful in the sense where if you're in a fucked up situation, I mean, shit, I could fucking decide to get out of it, right? That's you using your mind. Or if you're not using your mind, somebody else is using it for you, and you're no different than an animal who's got to be in a place and it's got no choice. Let's say if I got my cat in the house, but it desperately wants to go out, but I keep it indoors, it's got no choice but to stay indoors because I'm in control of it. So I look at the body. Once you realize that you're not that cat, but you're a person who truly has domain over the planet, and domain is basically house, then you realize that all these things, even the animals, I'm observing these cats. A lot of these cats, everything that, like, you got these squirrels. I watched those videos. They're very interesting, but you're observing your animal in real time. That's why you never seen these people say the warrior spirit, you embody the warrior animal. What animal spirit do you have? Like, what
Mhm.
is that? You know what I'm saying? Some people just be like, oh, they're egotistical and they want to be a certain animal. Every animal's in you. It's just you use these animals, and it comes up in a way where you truly have. You see, the animals have a technology that you don't have. Birds can fly. A bird can look at you and be like, "Look at this stupid human who's got to be grounded on the ground like a fucking idiot." Or a fish could be like, "Look how I swim," but a person can't swim like it. Or a cat can climb a tree; it's so agile. A monkey. Look at all these animals that have got so much potential over things that we can do, but we got something just basically intelligence. You get what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
like human intelligence.
We've got
So
very limited prowess in anything.
right, right. So that's what I'm saying. Like, all these animals, once you embody it, right, you're basically coming up not in the animalistic way, but the human animal is basically utilizing this energy to prowess through reality in the way that it can do, basically. You know what I'm saying? Whether it be in business, whether it be in spirituality, whatever it may be. Again, when you have a passion, you will do it to the best of your abilities. Like, I became passionate about this getting to know myself type of thing, that I immersed myself into it. I just it couldn't get out of my mind. But I did it. It's not that it was tormenting me. I wanted it there, and I kept wanting to know more, and know more, and know more. You know what I'm saying? But then again, it comes to a point where when you feel full, right? You gotta extract nutrients and observe if you got belief systems. These belief systems are no different than you not being able to take a shit. If you're eating a lot of food and you can't shit that shit out, I mean, you're gonna trip yourself into a pretty bad situation, right? So it's the same thing with the mind, which is a brain, and then, I mean, the mind is everything. You know what I'm saying? I'll just say up here, by that's just how we talk. But your stomach's a brain too. You know what I'm saying? Your heart's a brain. Your
Every
lower extremities is
body's
a
a
brain.
brain.
The entire body is the brain, absolutely. And when it works as one unit, what do we call that? A universe. You're one verse,
Yeah.
right? All the organs are firing in harmony, and they're all working.
And
You
you
get what I'm
see,
saying?
the thing about it is this body, the average body that lives to be like 70 years old, let's say, they don't have to think about a single thing about the operation. The operation through rain and shine and snow and stress and all these different things we put the body through. The body is fluctuating with its homeostasis. It's sending
Yeah,
nutrients and chemicals, and then it's attacking this and it's repairing that. All this genius going on. And we think that because we've got a brain, we're intelligent.
yeah,
It's a pea brain sitting on top of the cosmos, basically.
yeah.
This is the cosmos. This took billions of years to create, and it's the most genius thing in the fucking universe, by all accounts. And yet we've got this stupid little ego with an IQ of about 80. It's ridiculous. And
You've
we
ever
think
seen
it's
the picture of
good.
that? You've ever
Sorry?
seen the picture of that? You've ever seen the picture of that iceberg that sticks out on top of the water, and then you got that big ass boulder underneath? I
Yep.
feel like we're looking at our reality exactly like this. Like we got the dome, we got that little, rock sticking up on top, but then the
Yeah.
bigger part of it is just that big boulder on the bottom,
Yeah,
and that's just basically how I look at everything.
that's a good
Huh?
analogy because the top part is out in the world, so to speak, and it's
Yeah,
seeing all what's going on. Whereas the bottom part's like our unconscious. It's the mass of the intelligence, and it really knows what's going on. It's
that's
only a
right.
little titchy bit that thinks it knows what's going on, which is sticking out the top. But the
Like conscious and then subconscious. But then that unconscious, once that unconscious wakes up, it realizes the programs and the consciousness, because the consciousness is just a small part. That's why they say we can only see a certain percent of like 0.1 of the color spectrum, right?
yeah.
But that's how I can look at it, how we're all shards. But if we all integrate, or you realize and take the world in, that's when you start to open your perception up. You get what I'm saying? Not to just be in this container and think you know it all, right? It's just basically like right now I'm allowing you into my space, and I'm able to expand my consciousness. It's just getting different points of views. You're born in a certain space and time, a specific date and time of birth, whatever. I look at that as perceptions. Maybe if I step on your, like, let me get in your shoes, maybe I can see where you're looking at things from. Maybe I can, it's just different perspectives and perceptions of life.
Yeah. So when we're speaking about, oh, I don't want to step on your toes, or I'm not attacking you in the law. We're both fighters, and so whenever I would fight, and I know it's the same with you, um,
Mhm.
there's no bad blood between anybody that's going to kick our ass, because whoever kicks our ass has done us a big favor on that
Oh
day,
fuck yeah,
because it's
that's
kept
right.
us grounded, it's sent us back to the drawing board. We know we've got to sharpen the tools up, because we've got to make absolutely sure that that doesn't happen again, because we're in
Yeah,
the game of fighting, and fighting is about at least being equal, if not winning. And so anytime anybody that spars with me in this sort of way, then it's a good thing. And I'm always inviting it. When I joust with people throughout the year,
yeah,
I've jousted with everybody. I've called everybody under the sun, rattling all their cages to see what comes back. And then when people start, oh, you're this and you're that, I look at that and I go, is there any truth in any of that? And I go, there's a bit of truth in this. That's projection. That's just, he'd hope it's that. There is truth in this and there's truth in that. And I look at myself and I go, okay, do I want to change anything? And I go, no. Why don't you want to change anything? Because you're upsetting people, and I'm not. I'm not upsetting people. People are upsetting themselves. I'm giving them an opportunity to be upset. I'm doing what
mhm,
we would do if we fought. I'm giving you an opportunity to brush up on your skills because your kicks
yeah,
ain't fast enough, right?
yeah,
So if I kick you before you can kick me, you've got to know that your kicks are too slow, and that's what
yeah.
I'm doing with people. But
I
there's
like I like I like that analogy though, and the reason I see it like that is because again, like if I'm gonna spar with somebody, um, it's like I look at it like you could hurt my ego, right? But an ego death is never a fucking bad thing. You get what I'm saying? Sometimes, and the thing is, you're putting yourself vulnerable. You're out there, right? So if I go and somebody smashes me, I could go one or two ways. I can just stay down and fucking dwell on that, or I can just pick myself up. That's why you see the point of humans is that a man could fall, but the point is to get back up, and that's why I separated like angels and demons. Angels were never meant to fall, and demons are never meant to rise. They're in their positions. Man is, stands, but he falls. But the point is to get back up. You get what I'm saying? You don't stay
yeah.
broken in that space. You get what I'm saying?
So
That's why I look at that analogy as like ego. You're using the ego, but you making it stronger at the same time, but
Yeah,
as not as a weapon, but more as a tool to keep yourself sharp and sharpen others.
the ego
You
is
know.
the operating system that allows you to do all these things. And so
Mhm,
I was trained in Kyokushin karate,
mhm,
which is Japanese. It's the full contact karate. It's renowned for being the strongest karate in the world. And these praktika or karateka, they because it's Japanese, it's all about respect. It's all about discipline. And
yeah,
in these clubs all around Europe, which take on the franchise from Japan, that they operate under the same system. As soon as you enter into the dojo, you don't speak anymore. You just listen to
yeah,
the instruction and you do exactly what the instructor tells you. And this is for an hour and a half. And you're all standing in a row. You've got your gis on, and they're all washed and they're all ironed, and you've got all the respect. And then when you spar with your partner, if you kick him down or something like this, you got to make sure he's okay. You help him up, and then you give him something. You almost had me at the beginning. You give him something back. You don't want to leave him feeling humiliated. It's not about that.
yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah,
about the respect. You did really well. You good spirit and all that sort of thing. And so that's how I was taught as a fighter, and no ego. Just ego just didn't come into it.
yeah,
What came into it is if I got a kick in, then I was going to give myself another kick in because I was going to be training at home every hour that's possible and available to me. I built in my garage like a wooden man. They use this martial arts stuff, and I had a small pad like this, a very thin one on the wall, and I had all this sort of blocking stuff, and I had legs to do all the kicking, and I had the speedball, on the bungee, wah 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 wah, blah, 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 and then I had the punch bag and all that sort of thing. So I'd be working on all that incessantly. I'd be out with my punch bag hanging in the tree all throughout the year. And I remember when I was training, I was in the British full contact karate team representing my country. And so I had to make sure I was absolutely ready for it. And I would train bare knuckles on this solid bag out at, -3 or 5 when it's snowing and it's frosty. And the neighbours would be looking out their windows at me thinking, I fucking lost the plot, But no, I was just dedicated. And I always worked on the premise that every time I spend an hour out in the freezing cold, that's an hour over and above my competitors because they
right,
ain't going to be doing it like I am. I
yep,
really was like David Goggins. You know that
yeah,
dude? Yeah, I was like
yeah,
him. I was fucking, I was
yeah.
just focused.
You and I are a lot alike, man. Because I was exactly the same way.
Yeah.
I'm I was in so many different activities when I was younger that I had to make sure I was always number one though. And I sometimes did it through trash talking. And that's why I say sometimes just, trash talking, getting in somebody's head is super efficient.
Well, Ali
And
did it all the time, didn't he?
yeah, yeah, but that's the whole thing. Even though you trash talk, you can always. That's why I love MMA combat sports, right? You get into somebody's head, you can see the art of mental warfare because
Yeah,
that's
see
what
what
we're in every
you
day.
to do.
Yeah, we're every day. I mean, we're fighting. We're in the art of mental warfare every day.
Yeah,
That's why they say the mind is all, the universe is mental. But
psychological
you
war.
can, yeah. But when you're observing this, as far as like two athletes, and you could see when one breaks. And the funny thing is, through the face-off, you know what's funny? Your heart. I always said the heart's a projection of your reality. Your heart emits an energy that's basically. I think from what I heard is as far as like 8 feet far out. When they do a face-off, right? You can have a bigger guy, and I've had this before. I've always had this like strong energy. I got a lot of vitality, and I measure that through my sexuality and whatnot. But I know that there's guys that were bigger than me. And for some reason, I saw them breaking, and I could see this through the facial muscles. There's a lot of, because look, the reason I was so efficient as a manager is because I am very good at marketing, but I'm also very good when I'm selling. I read body language a lot. And when it came down to some like breaking somebody, it's just my presence, the energy, and that's why I love face-offs. That face-off, one will break. You have the whole story built up, which is the trash talking, and we all do that. We develop stories for ourselves. We think we're something based on the stories we hold in our mind. But when you got that face-off, you're facing yourself. You get what I'm saying? And that person, if that person breaks, that is a mirror of you. It's a reflection of you. But
Yeah.
man, I see so much depth to that. That once you can see you go into the octagon, the smaller guy will whoop this guy's ass. You could see the lack of confidence in that bigger fighter just by that face off or the trash talking. The guy has real estate in his head all of a sudden. There's a lot of energy that was read there. You get what I'm saying? And I'm very, very big on that. And I see that in certain people, how they express themselves, how they speak, the power in their voice, everything. Everything is just you project, you're emitting something, you're emitting frequency, energy, and you feel somebody's vibes. That's where Tesla said, if you want to know the keys to the universe, think of energy, frequency, and vibration. But if you're confident and you built and develop that strength within you, let's call it the ego. There's nothing wrong with the ego, man. I mean, how could you know what the taste of chocolate is like or the beauty of an orgasm if you don't have a fucking ego, man? You know what I'm saying? It could
Well,
be used as a weapon.
yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, my ego has took me around the world. It's been responsible for every single
yeah,
thing I've
yeah,
achieved. You know,
yeah.
the operating system is a wonderful thing. And if you have an operating system which has minimal fear, then that enables you to experience a whole lot more stuff.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm doing all this fungi foraging and cooking all this stuff. And, lots of my viewers go, oh, yeah, well, you're living up to your name, awake and brave. I would never dare do that. And I'm like, well, I'm not. I'm not like just taking part luck with this stuff, I do it because I'm confident in my intelligence, my thorough investigation, and being absolutely sure before I eat this stuff and checking
hmm
against all the other poisonous ones that I'm not going to leave my daughter without a father, and so by the time, so what are people doing? What the people are doing when they say, I would never do that, they're saying that I could never depend on my intelligence. I can never depend on my own mind that I wouldn't kill myself because I'm obviously too stupid. And so the reason why I eat these fungi is because I have to be absolutely sure. So I've got to make
yeah,
sure that I'm very, very thorough and I watch all the videos and I've got all these books and I inspect them in every single which way. And if I've got any doubt, then I won't touch them. I'll only touch them, when I'm confident. But there's a thing that happens in the brain, even when you're absolutely sure, there's still a doubt in your mind that you're eating a poisonous mushroom because that's the thing that's been conditioned into us forever. And
yeah,
it may even be a natural endowment that we're always going to be thinking about this. You see, we've not with wild fungi, we haven't grown up and accustomed ourselves to picking the stuff off the supermarket shelf. Because when we do that, we've grown with that and we're absolutely accustomed to it. But when we're eating new stuff, then all of a sudden the brain's going, do you know what you're doing here? Have you checked that? Because there are fucking ramifications, this, that, and the other, and there's all this sort of stuff. But every time I eat one of these mushrooms, and I have to do a little bit of a meditation before because I have to allay that innate egoic doubt, the evolutionary doubt. I have to put that aside and override with my conscious intelligence. And so that's a very important thing. And
yeah,
that's what the vast majority of people can't do. And
yeah,
so I just say, well, I mean, when you look into the psychology of why you can't do it, then ask yourself what your fear prevents, what else it prevents you from doing in your life. Oh, I can never climb a mountain because what if I broke my ankle, or what if I did this, or what if I did that? If you were going to climb a mountain with that mindset, you would create that shit. And in the book, I write about the time I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro and I created my worst nightmare.
yeah,
So that was very, very powerful. I absolutely created that because I wanted it to be the absolute hardest and most horrendous thing I've ever done in my life because I was tired of traveling all around the world. I just wanted to retire and hang up my hiking boots and just chill like I am now. But I couldn't do that without going out with one last fight, with one big one you know.
yeah,
And so then I did it. And then that part whereby I brought this altitude sickness and the energy drain on me to such an extent I thought I was going to die. And then I turned off my conscious egoic mind. And I climbed for the last 3.5 hours just on spirit. I wasn't
Mm.
aware for 3.5 hours. That I still don't remember to this day. I said to myself, the only way I'm going to get to the top of this fucking mountain is if I don't remember a single fucking thing
Right.
about it. Otherwise, I'm
Yep.
just going to be dead here and now. And so this is the power of the mind, and this is
Yep.
why I'm so really, really assertive about my convictions, because I've tried all this stuff.
Yep.
When I've had Jesus talk to me, God talk to me, I've been to hell, and I've had angels, in the most clearest and brightest of technical you can ever imagine. I'm like, what the fuck was that?
Yep.
There's something going on. So there's something I want to ask you in relation
Mhm.
to something else, which is really powerful. It's very difficult to comprehend, but the Tao Te Ching,
Um,
familiar with
what is
that?
that?
The Tao Te Ching.
I've heard of it, but I never dove too deep into that.
Right. So when people talk about the Tao, it's spelt Tao,
Mm.
and
Aaron, can
yeah,
I can I before we change topic, I want to add something in for the fungi
yeah,
topic. There was a realization I had. We'll get into that now. I don't want to cut you off. I just want to make sure I put this in there. But I had a realization about something as I'm gardening, and I love gardening for this reason because I feel like it, it may seem like something's talking to me, but it's just coming as a realization, and that's how you know that the environment basically is you because it comes through realizations. That's how you know it's true and not something you think is true. You get what I'm saying? But when it comes to, I've heard certain shamans who were preparing concoctions, right? And there was reporters that would ask him, well, how do you know how to make this blend? And they said something very interesting. They said that the plants told us. You get what I'm
yeah,
saying?
yeah,
And that's very interesting. Now, I also heard Bruce Lipton talk about this, where there was some monks or yogis, I forgot what they were, but they worked themselves up to a state of ecstasy, and they were taking like poisons, but it was not killing them. But that's true, like mind over matter. If we want to get into epigenetics, like you control basically everything above that. But here's the realization I had as I was gardening. There's certain, like I feel like nothing should kill you in nature. Nothing should kill you. The reason that it does is only how we conditioned our body, like you just mentioned, based on like programming and what we believe in, whatnot. But there's something too chemically where this is a scientific fact. If you eat certain mushrooms, if you drink alcohol, it's going to make you really, really sick.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying? But now here's the thing. Everybody has a lot of alcohol and ammonias in their body from all the fucking shit they eat. Sometimes it could be processed sugars that convert to ammonia in the system. Too much animal protein converts to like nitrogenous waste. Your body technically, like if you, let's say, I heard this one doctor say that a guy ate oatmeal and then immediately ate watermelons afterwards, and he went and drove and got a breathalyzer test, and he was arrested because they said he was intoxicated, but he never took a drink.
wow,
This goes to prove that we create all these ammonia and alcohols within us, and the thing is that we've distorted our microbiome. And it's kind of like E. coli and whatnot. When you look at the E. coli universe, it's very closely equated to our physical universe. When you look at this on a bacterial level, I'll
yeah,
send you a link to that. I think you're going to find that really, really interesting. But I feel like we've structured our microbiome to a way where we can only eat the shit that's like pasteurized and overheated and cleansed, because it's like if you drink milk all the time and then you stop drinking milk for a while, you become lactose intolerant. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? So we've disconnected ourselves from nature so much from the information that we can gather from nature, just because we've lost even touching the soil. We don't want to get dirt under our nails, or we don't want to put our feet in the soil. We've disconnected to the point that we no longer have a harmonious chemistry with nature, that if we take certain mushrooms, it's going to fucking kill us. You get what I'm saying? Where it shouldn't even be like that. Even viruses. We're supposed to process viruses. We have every single virus known to man already within us.
yeah,
You get what I'm saying? The only reason a virus would kill you is if your immune system's compromised from the shit you've been doing already to begin with.
yes,
Because viruses are responsible for the evolution of your species, for even being here.
yeah,
The matter of fact, your body consists of nothing but viruses, bacteria, and cells with two major fluids. That's all you are.
yeah,
But the reason it can't process it is because it can't no it can't defend itself against it. Because that's why they say what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. If you can't beat that virus, it kills you. You know what I'm
mhm,
saying? Which death is another topic. We talked about animals and whatnot. I actually want to talk about that, but I want you to get into the thought. I didn't want to cut you off, but those are realizations I've had with the fungi world. You get what I'm saying? It's just, I
Yeah,
find
well,
it so interesting how we can't ingest certain things.
if we were still eating from the earth, then we would have all these microbes and viruses within
That's
our
right.
whole body. But because we've become estranged from these now, and we're only being fed clinically processed and cleansed stuff, and it seems there's a conspiracy to wipe off
Hmm.
the humans from the face of the earth, because the more they're genetically modifying, the more they are telling us not to eat any bacteria, always be clean, 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 bleach and disinfect.
Right.
Nonsense, absolutely nonsense. If you go to a real health specialist, they'll tell you to eat a quarter teaspoon of soil every day. Go
Yeah.
into your garden in a nice fertile region and take a quarter of a teaspoon of soil with all those microbes in, and then you'll have the universe within inside you.
Yeah.
As soon as you start preventing yourself from doing that, then your body forgets about it. It stops creating the antibodies, and it doesn't recognize the viruses when they come in,
That's
and it
right.
doesn't have the defenses to defend them. And so
Yeah.
that's what's happening with the human body.
I grew a shitload of blackberries, man. A lot of blackberries, and some of them had. I didn't even notice I was eating them at one point, but then I opened them up. There's like a little worm in them when they're overripe,
Right.
and I was like, "Yo, shit! I've been eating fucking worms, and I didn't even notice it." But I
Yeah,
mean,
I
shit,
mean,
nothing happened to me, man.
I was picking blackberries one day, and this young guy, about 30 years old, was walking, and his little daughter, about 7 years old, was walking ahead of him. And she stopped and she asked me, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Oh, I'm picking these blackberries." I said, "Do you want one?" And he went, "No." And the girl says, "Daddy, why?" And he said, "A bird might have pissed on it. A bird might have pissed on the blackberry."
First of all, if a bird pisses on it, you're gonna see shit. They shit and piss at the same time.
Exactly. I did make a video about it, and I said, well, first and foremost, birds don't piss. They shit and piss at the same time, and
Yeah,
you'd see it then because it'd be white. But when I pick them, all this food, I'm not even looking if there's any maggots in it or bugs on it. And when I'm
oh
cooking my
yeah,
mushrooms, I'm like, I'll flick off the big ones, but the small ones, they're cool. Maggots, I'm cool with
yeah,
those. And all this because what the hell, we can't. I don't want to be afraid, and I don't want to detach myself from that level of nature. Speaking of which,
yeah,
then move on to the Tao now, because the Tao,
yeah.
it means the way. And there's a guy called Lao Tzu, who was Chinese, who was a spiritualist, a philosopher, 800 BC, I think it was, something like that. And he wrote this book, and it's got I think it's 82 verses, and basically it's speaking about the way of nature. It cannot be defined, it cannot be fully articulated. If you profess you know it, you do not know it. If you profess you have it, you don't have it, and all this sort of thing. So it's the mystery of the cosmos. And what he actually says is that when we become absolutely natural, we are going to be the healthiest, the happiest, and the most productive. Now, if we take ourselves back in imagination, let's say 500 years, when we were working on the land and we was involved with the land, and everything was about our connection with the land. We knew everything about the land, and we blessed the sun, we worshipped the sun, we loved the rain, the clouds. Everything was amazing to us because it was our world. We live by candlelight, or something similar to that, and we went to bed at dark and we rose at light, and all sorts of things. We live with this beautiful circadian rhythm, and when we were living like that, of course, we were the perfect human being. We were, in actual fact, in the Garden of Eden. And we were in the Garden of Eden not only for the health, natural aspects, but for the mind aspects, because we had nothing to think about other than what was just everyday stuff. It was everyday stuff which we could do with our eyes closed. It was ploughing the fields, it's planting the crops, it's reaping and preparing. All this stuff, we did it without an egoic mind. And so what I said in the book was that the whole thing about the Garden of Eden and man's downfall when we ate from the forbidden tree is because then we created our ego. Our ego came on board, and the ego fucks everything up. So the Tao is saying that just get involved with nature. Don't get busy in your mind about anything else that's going to be taxing your mind and taking you out of the present moment. That's where the secret is. And so I look at the Tao and I go, well, the Tao is given the same message as the Garden of Eden. You see, what I wrote about the Garden of Eden in that book, I've never read anything which it states my hypothesis on that the Garden of Eden is the analogy for when our ego came on board. Because Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, they didn't know anything. They didn't know even that they were naked. So what's that saying? They never had a conscious mind which was judging. They never had judgment. They never had ego. When they ate from the tree of fruit of good and evil or knowledge, then all of a sudden, oh, aghast, they were naked and they was ashamed. So shame came about instantly, recognition of themselves, the ego came on. It's the ego which is evil, the ego which is Satan, and it's the ignorance which is God. And that's why God wanted to keep them ignorant, because he knew that, the metaphor, that that's the best possible human state. So what I'm saying is that that state in Eden is exactly the same as the Tao.
Yeah.
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 And so if you tell them
Um,
Christian, of course they'll want to hang you or stone you.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's you got, and that's why you can't have these conversations with everybody, man, because
Yeah, yeah.
it's like it's a waste of energy. Most of the time, is just talking at thin air. So sometimes I just not
So
say
when
anything
you
to them.
look at that, you see, if we um, if we decipher what those books said um, from a human psychological way, because what I'm saying is that those books, they were the first cognitive behavioral therapy. They were basic human psychology for the masses. I mean, the Ten Commandments. Don't try and covert your neighbour's ox, because the chances are he'll cut your fucking head off. Don't try and commit adultery, because in those days everybody kill you for anything. They just fucking kill you. And so it's kind of like to keep the death down. Don't try and shag your missus's wife, and don't be stealing from your neighbour. And for God's sake, don't start judging anybody, because it'll get out of hand and he'll come round with an axe and all this sort of stuff. So elementary. For the savage human being. It's just an introduction of the first
Mhm.
psychology. And I'm like, come on, people. I mean, even people like Peter Hitchens, who was a devout atheist, and Richard Dawkins, and oh God, there's a dozen others. I've watched these debates, and they just get into the stupid superficial rubbish of like, well, if there was a god, then why would he create a wasp which would lay an egg into a spider which would eat it alive? And I'm like, well, is that all you've got to say in contestation of the Bible and God? Oh, come on. And you're supposed to be intelligent. Stephen Fry is one of these guys. He's a British author and actor and all that. And they go on stage and they get paid thousands. And I'm like, somebody invite me. One day, when I'm long dead, you'll read my book and you'll go, where is this guy? He knew where he was fucking coming down. And I'm aghast at why people just they can't see it. And that's why the more I speak about this, the more my viewers have less and less to say, because they're in a different world. They're in a different cosmos. And I'm like, I don't know why I'm like this. I don't know why I can see everything as clear as day. You know,
Yeah, it's very intimidating to some people. You know what I'm saying? Like either they don't get it, they're intimidated and whatnot. Because I mean, I've been on that boat too. You know what I'm saying? It's just if nobody says anything, I mean, shit. I guess it's either nothing to add or just spectating. But it doesn't. It doesn't. I don't give a shit, to be honest with you. I always say my videos are journals I even referred back, like, remember I was telling you, uh, you were talking about the DMT. It sparked me to go back in my library, and I happened to make a video on psychedelics 4 years ago. You get what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Which I really want you to watch and tell me what you think of it. But
Yeah, we do. I
um,
watched the three videos that you've got on your channel. I've got them somewhere on my hard drives, but I would never be able to find them without looking at every single one of them. But I listened to those and I thought, wow, what great conversations. Two human
the
beings.
old ones,
The old ones, yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I think the oldest one was
they're
five.
on my channel.
Yeah, I know. I've watched them. That's
Yeah,
what I'm just saying. I
yeah.
watched them on your
Oh, okay,
channel,
okay.
and I watched some of
Yeah,
your videos. And
mhm,
so I looked at those and I thought, how rare is that? You know,
yeah,
two shit kickers. We've not got
yeah.
PhDs. We've not written any fucking books. We're not
That's right.
made movies. We're just two shit kickers. With
Yeah,
little channels that nobody will never get more than 1,000 fucking subscribers.
yeah,
For as long as we live, and yet we are speaking about the nature of the cosmos.
yeah.
At such a profound level, which 99% of the people just don't comprehend.
No, and sometimes and you know what? And well, this doesn't frustrate me necessarily, but you can tell what the state of the world is just by where the traffic is at. So, like, when you see these big channels and you hear what they're saying, and sometimes I'm like, are they just talking to fucking like just make content, or at what point do they not realize that a lot of it is project, or people at least, do they not realize that the person's projecting? There's a person that speaks. I don't want to mention names, but they're just fucking spilling their fucking life, and it's just the complaining. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
There's really no substance. I mean, and then there's people. Everybody's in so much trauma that they relate to that, and that's why the traffic goes there. But it doesn't necessarily mean that that person has high credibility. Sometimes you find those gems in the small channels, and the state of humanity isn't that small percentage. That's the whole thing. And if you get that large percentage to listen to that information from the smaller channels, they may not even know what the fuck you're talking about. You
yeah,
get what I'm saying? So that's why look, the ruling families of this planet are small fucking small families, bro. You get what I'm saying? And
yeah,
the amount of fucking dumb people are the big ones. So think about it. The ones ruling the world are a small amount, but all the power is there. You get what
yeah,
I'm saying? So sometimes I say like the smaller channels are where all the richness is at times. You know what I'm saying? Depending on the individual,
yeah,
depends for interpretation. But those big channels, sometimes I'm listening and I'm like, all that here is complaining, a bunch of empty shit. Like, it's just like, I look at it like empty calories. Like, you're eating junk food. You know what I'm saying? The person just feels good when they're listening to certain lingos and words, and
yeah.
there's really no substance to it. It's
No,
just junk food.
are you familiar with Noah Harari or Yuval Noah Harari or something like this? He's a Jewish author. He wrote *Sapiens*.
Yeah.
And he's wrote two other books. And he speaks about how we're just going to be absolutely overrun with AI. And
Mm-hmm.
he's very intelligent. But then you just get people just tossing him off, just dissing him and just disrespecting him. And I'm like, my advice would be to listen to this guy because, as far as I can see, he knows exactly where the world's going. He ain't no stupid guy, you know. But this is it. And there's one guy, Robert Greene. He wrote 48 Rules of Power. It became a million bestseller because it became big with the rappers. And Richard Green went on to write another book with 50 Cent. Because 50 Cent read Green's book, Robert Green's, and because he said it was exactly the trouble he was having with the hierarchical powers and the manipulation in the music business. And so then he contacted Robert Greene, and they became friends, and then wrote a book. And so Robert Greene, now a wealthy author and attributed with great intelligence, the videos I'm watching of him, he's saying things like this. Look, if people try to manipulate you, then just say no. You can just say no. And if you say no, then they can't have that power over you. And I'm like, am I fucking hearing this? Really? You've got to tell people that you can actually say no. But then when I think about that, it's not such a stupid thing. But he's
No.
He's really realizing the state of the fucking idiot at this moment in time, that he does have to appeal to them. You can actually say fucking no, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
Fucking muppet. But the point is, from the cradle to the grave, Ziggy, they're indoctrinated into being subservient, um, uh, law-abiding, and rule-following, agreeable people. The last thing anybody wants to do is have a confrontation with anybody. God forbid anybody would want to assert their rights or their opinion, and that's what's come over the world. And so I'm like, my God, that is it. That's the height of it. Jordan Peterson, in one of his books, the greatest and most recited of comments is like, stand up with a straight back and clean up your fucking room. That's his message to young men. And it stems from one of his clients that was about 30 years old, still living with his mother. His father had gone, so he never had a father figure. And he wouldn't even clean his room up. His room was an absolute mess, and he was depressed. And his mother was reasonably wealthy, so paid for him to go and see Peterson. And then Peterson was looking into how he lived his life. And Peterson used to give him a task of, first thing, just tidy up your sock drawer. And if you can't manage the whole sock drawer, tidy up half of your sock drawer. And so then when the guy would come next week, Peter would go, how did you get along with the sock drawer? I did 3 and I couldn't do any more. And he'd say, well, okay, that's a start. And now Peterson speaks about this. It's a start. We've got to start somewhere, and we build from that. And I'm like, fuck, is that what the fucking world's come to?
mhm,
Tidy up your sock drawer, cunt.
yeah,
Bring back national service. Let's make men of people. All that sort of thing. The world is seriously, just falling apart before our very eyes. And then
yeah,
another thing now, Robert Greene, he's writing another book now. And what happened is, in recent times, is he suffered a stroke. He used to do mountaineering and cycling and a little bit of running and quite a lot of walking, but now the stroke has left him housebound. And now he sits at his window looking out, watching people walk their dogs. And he's writing his book. And his new book is about how people don't appreciate what they've got. So he's writing it now from an invalid's perspective. And he's crying inside that people walking the dogs outside are not appreciating every step that they take. Because if you only knew what that would feel like to have it taken away from you, like I feel, I can't walk anymore, I can't climb anymore, I can't walk my dog anymore, and you don't appreciate it. And that's how it's gone. It's gone almost psychotic. And I'm like, well, you're never going to get through to these motherfuckers appreciating little things like walking the dog or getting out of bed in the morning until they've been stricken with fucking cancer or something. And it takes that to realize, to shake their fucking numbskulls.
yeah.
Fuck, man.
Um, you spoke on artificial intelligence, right?
Yeah.
Um, do you think our bodies are a form of artificial intelligence?
Well, I mean, it depends what perspective you look at this from. Because if we look at it from the simulation, then everything is artificial, and it's very feasible. When again our top scientists tell us that the universe is written in binary and computers work in binary, well, fuck me, the universe is a computer then, isn't it? And when the quantum physicists tell us that there's no matter here in any case, well, fucking hell,
Mhm,
it seems a no-brainer to me. I'm
right.
perfectly happy. I don't give a fuck what any of it is, because I've just got this intuitive knowledge that I am it. And this is just a tiny little facet of what I
Well, I
am.
mean, I ask this because you know how our body, for example, like when we look at death, just death. Death basically is just a transition, like uh, into a different form, right? But what's keeping our bodies going, right? So like we hear that our cells hold about 1.3 volts of electricity, right? Um, but then that doesn't seem like a lot, but comparing everything, you know what I'm saying? That's a lot of current if we have trillions of cells. But death, in a way, when you separate, like you know how somebody knocks you out, but let's say just life overall, where it's no longer able to flow through you. If we're in a mathematical or an electrical universe, because this is the realm of light, we're technically in dark. We light up the reality, right? But if your body is no longer able to house that current, then that's what happens in death. Because your body, for me, obviously, the end of the world happened. For you, no, because you continue on. But observing my body, you still observe all those proteins intact. You get what I'm saying? It's just lifeless. The only thing that's happening there is that the proteins are no longer receiving a signal for them to change shape and form, and obviously keep the body alive. It's
Well,
like the lights were cut off.
yeah, but you see,
Yeah.
all of these these questions and ways of looking at something. What I have to do, I keep thinking about I'm going to have to, buy a whiteboard, and I can speak and illustrate at the same time. Now, when you ask me that, I'm like, well, what I've got to do is I have to come back from being the universe, and I have to
Well,
come back.
there's a reason why I asked this, because
No, no.
where I was going to get to with
Yeah,
this. Well,
but
I'm
what
gonna
I'm
let me because I want you to answer it, but I want you to answer it with this last point I got.
okay,
The reason I mentioned this and hold that thought is because, like, there's accounts where people say that it's possible to transfer your consciousness onto an AI program when you're dead, right? But
right,
then we start to look at, uh, let's say, a form of the what does the robot, because they're still trying to perfect a robot trying to run like a human. That's how elaborate the human body is. That's how complex it is. But they can't get a robot to run properly or run up the steps properly the same way that a human body operates in its perfection. But this is why I say that we're sort of de-evolving, thinking that we can do something like that, even though it seems so technologically involved, right? But you're getting into a lesser a robot doesn't have the complex emotions that a human has. So if that's possible, let's say, where they can transfer the consciousness onto an AI program, where was the consciousness at, or how could you even house that to begin with? Right upon death, that's what I'm saying. Are you grasping like a sort of essence and putting it in some type of container? You get what I'm trying to say? This is why when I think of something like this, as far as like our body being artificial intelligence, is because we have automatic functions that we're not in control of. I mean, we're aware things are happening like digestion,
right.
heartbeat, but the body doesn't know the difference between a real or fake experience. But when we become aware that we have control, like we could take manual override like a plane, it's on autopilot, but then you take the wheel and whatnot in the cockpit. All these little questions that you can ask to kind of grasp into just the electrical nature of everything. But I'll let you go in because I don't want to take too long. I don't want you to lose that thought.
Rene Descartes, philosopher of 1600s, he wrote a book called Meditations, and I put an excerpt of that book in my book.
I saw.
And what he did was he wanted to know what was real about the human being. And because he had a suspicion that it was all fake and none of it would stand up to scrutiny. And so what he did was he looked at every single one of his senses and he considered that they were all fallible. And the only thing in the end that he considered was real in this experience was the fact that something was thinking. Now, again, the only thing he couldn't dispute was consciousness. Because we can never dispute that, because even when we're sleeping, we're still conscious. We call it
Yeah.
unconscious because the ego goes to sleep. The body doesn't go to sleep. The body's still working 24/7. It
Right.
never has a single moment lapse of consciousness. And so what I say when you ask questions like that, and you say, well, what about this? And they're doing this to the robot. And what about we're electric and they're electric? I go, well, look, what about that? Everything's a simulation. And there is no conscious human beings. It's just a simulation. It's just a dream. We can do anything. And that's why when people say, do you think computers will ever be sentient? Well, everything's sentient.
Everything's already alive.
Everything's already alive. Everything's conscious. We are in consciousness. And so all we have to do is to flip something in our minds, which then allow us to kid ourselves that this is conscious. Just like we allow ourselves to kid ourselves that there's God up in the sky and Jesus walked on water, and there's a particle called the Higgs boson, and all these sort of things. We allow all this kiddery going, but we don't listen to the physicists in the other room when they've told us for over 100 years that there is no particles. What don't you
Right.
get about that? There's no particles, fools, and yet you're trying to smash particles, and you're trying to find the Higgs boson, and you're trying to find the God particle, where scientists in the next fucking room, they're like, there is no, hello, no, there's no fucking matter. It's all conscious. That's all that there is. And that's what I do. Every time anybody poses a question, I'm like, well, fucking, if you want to dream about that, fucking dream about it. But as far as I'm concerned, it's all a dream. Because we aren't conscious. Find fucking consciousness. We can't find consciousness. But we know things are conscious. I'm assuming that you're conscious because we're having this, pretty in-depth conversation. So therefore, there is consciousness going. We're in consciousness.
Yeah.
And something, Rene Descartes, one last thing, Rene Descartes, he wrote in his meditations that it could just be that there's an evil demon somewhere which is kidding us, is programming us into thinking that we're real boys. And that is exactly a simulation. He wrote about
Yeah.
simulation in 1650.
Mhm. Let me ask you this. I mean, you see the world for how you are, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So check this out. Like, do you believe in ancient history?
Ancient history. I don't believe anything.
Yeah.
You know,
Because the only reason I ask that is because if you see the world for how you are, right? I was just pondering on this. I'm like, if you see the world for how you are, how could the world have ever been before you were born? You know what I'm saying? What if nothing existed before you were born? You were just told of these things, and the moment you die, everything just stops. Like
here's,
everything is done.
yeah, exactly. Here's the beautiful thing. Now, because you've read the book and it's a long book, and so
Hmm.
you probably
Hmm.
didn't remember all the details. But in that book, when I was seeking out what the Christian faith actually meant, and I was asking everybody, and I was talking to chaplains, and I was reading this book and that book, and I spent 6 months in the deep into the Christian faith and this, that, and the other, and then all of a sudden I had an epiphany. I'm like, oh my God. It's like the scientists trying to find consciousness, looking for consciousness with consciousness, but not
Yeah.
realizing that they are consciousness. And so I said to myself, because I was asking all these Christians, can you tell me what faith is? Because I don't get it. I can't compute it. Because for me, I either know it or I don't. I just can't have faith because faith is just imagining. It's hope.
Hmm.
I can hope that there's a Jesus or there's a heaven. I can imagine there's a hope and the Jesus. It's the same fucking thing. But if you're going to make something real, you've got to have faith. So you've got to have hope. You've got to have imagination. You've got to have belief. You've got to have faith. They're all the same fucking thing. You've got to
Hmm.
create a fiction. And I went, well, I can't create that fiction. But then the penny dropped. And I said to myself, well, fuck me. All of my life, I've been living with faith because I don't know how far the sun is away. I don't know what the circumference is to the world. I don't know how far the moon is away. I don't know how deep the Mariana Strait, the Mariana Strait is 7 miles deep, the fucking ocean. I don't know that Venus is 4,000 degrees and this, that, and the other. It's all been a giant leap of faith. Every single thing, being a human being, is a leap of faith. Because if you look for reality, there isn't any.
How do you separate faith and hope?
I don't.
Yeah.
Exactly the
When you
same.
see humanity, humanity is just basically in the hope frequency at all times. And
Yes.
they keep you in there hoping for something better to happen tomorrow. But we also do this with ourselves too. But again, that whole faith and hope that God comes down one day and things will get better one day, or let's say even your kids will hope to be the one to break the generational curse of and be the successful one in the family, or just in hope. Even let's say for you, hope that you'll be better tomorrow, but then you go and fuck up tomorrow again. I mean, it just comes down to who's in charge and who's in control of this whole shit. You get what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, it's discipline that's needed, but where's the free will if you say you're like, let's say if somebody's addicted to something, they mark and say they're going to stop doing it. And then they can say I have hope that I'll stop, or I have faith that I'll stop, or I have belief in myself that I'll stop. But the moment you break that, who are you lying to? You get what I'm saying? Something is recording that lie, and that's why your gene, like your cell. That's why I wanted to talk about cells. Your cells are sentient. The perception of your body and how you see yourself, everything's recorded somewhere. That's why it says, like, even if you forget your reality here, something's remembering. Everything's recorded somewhere.
Yes.
You know, and we call that Akashic. That's why I said I am the Akashic records. I am, the storehouse of ancient memory and viruses and information center in my body. But if I'm coming down to, uh, let's say, lying to myself, oh, my cells are very aware that I'm full of shit. So then now you start to keep on in that loop, keep on in that cycle, and then you pass that shit down to your children. That's how the whole fucking circle and cycles just keep repeating themselves. You get what I'm saying? But it all starts from how disciplined you are with yourself. You know how easy, you notice how I've been in this loop before where I've had so much passion to try to help others, but then at times I'm like, I haven't helped myself yet, or I don't practice what I preach. I've been in that state before, and I'm like, yo, I need to fucking correct this shit because this is just me being inauthentic or just fake. And I realized that within myself only by how I felt in my gut. And now, and it doesn't have to do with the stuff I spoke about in videos. It's just even somebody asking me a simple question. I worked in the supplement industry. Hey man, I'm suggesting creatine to them as if I'm taking the shit at the Holy Grail. One of them asked me, well, do you take this? And in my mind, I'm like, yeah, I take this too, but I really wasn't taking it. I felt like shit afterwards. I'm like, what the fuck? What happened? There's a realization. I'm like, I just fucking like lied, but I felt bad about it. And that's a form of somebody saying, oh, your conscience is bothering you, right?
Yeah.
Something is there and it's alive, and it's like you got, like people say, you got the angel and the demon on the side, but somebody is observing and making you feel that way, or like something's happening and you're aware of it. And that's why I started to realize that authenticity is very important, and it prevents people from having anything over on you. You know how somebody just says,
Oh,
and it puts you in fear.
yeah.
You just open it up and be like, well, yeah, well, like I did this, and that's it.
The thing is about this life, it's tiered. And when I'm speaking with Paul, I'm going to see Paul tomorrow again. So we spend 6 hours, and we're non-stop like we are now. And by this time, we've known each other for 10 years now. And we always have to be in agreement of where we're speaking from. Because if you want to speak to me about AI becoming sentient, I have to come down into one certain Russian doll. Because as far as I'm concerned, this whole life is Russian dolls. We go into smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. The more metaphysical you get, the bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. The more ego you get is smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller.
Right.
So when we're down in the smallest, we're completely ego, and we think we're real, and everything's about us, and everything's causing us pain, or it's going to be threatening us. But once we take on the life of a Buddha, once we are in meditation and the ego is dissipated, and we're no longer in business, we no longer got a partner, we're no longer a prince, we're no longer got all these riches. We're just a dude sitting under a tree, in deep meditation without the ego. We're in the pure abyss. We're in the bliss of nothingness, nirvana. When you're there, the world doesn't exist. When we start thinking about the world, we create the world.
Yeah.
And so this is it. It just depends how much you want to create. If you want to create large hadron colliders and Higgs bosons and all this, fine, do it. If you want to go and live in a cage, that's your reality. And there's no man on the planet that can tell that guy living in the cave that the world is going on all around him, because as far as he's concerned and his consciousness, it's not.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's what's going on in our consciousness. And I'm
Yeah.
always saying there's no one world. There's trillions and gazillions of worlds, depending on whether you're a blade of grass, a leaf on a tree, or you're a bug of some sort. They all have a degree of consciousness because they are all within consciousness. And so they're feeding on the appropriate amount of consciousness. My squirrel, beautiful little thing, it knows how to take food and go and bury it. It knows when it's getting cold. It comes to me. I don't know whether you've seen the video. It's tugging,
I've seen
tugging,
it.
tugging at my shirt because he knew that it's going to be fucking freezing tonight. It's like, come on, man. I've not got enough duvets on my bed. I need some of this. That night it froze. These fucking animals, their intelligence is tapped in to the collective unconsciousness. Their intelligence is vastly more. How does my squirrel know what every other squirrel is saying? As soon as they hear a squirrel saying something, all of a sudden his tail's doing this, or his tail's doing that, or his tail's like this. You know, there's stuff going on. The
Mhm.
intelligence that's in there. So the next conversation, we've done 3 hours and 15 minutes now. And so we're
Mhm.
going to wrap this one up in 15 minutes if you're okay with that. One of the
Yeah.
next things I want to talk about, I want to talk about
Mhm.
egregores and tulpas. I want to talk about energy fields. Energy fields like what is the intelligence which enables an ant colony to act like a human civilization? Because they have a regiment, they have a hierarchy, they have queens, they have queen serfs, they have guards, they have workers, they have foragers. They decide amongst them somehow to send out an army to conquer another colony of the same species. They kill the pincer guys on the door and they hijack the queen, and then the whole colony follows. They do this apparently from a human perspective because having a larger colony increases its size of survival, its chance of survival. How the fuck do
Mhm.
they know this? There are my hypothesis, and this is another thing that I haven't heard anybody talk about. I'm talking about there's an egregoric type energy field. And how do birds all decide they're going to fly around like this and then all of a sudden go south? There's an energy field that they all get involved with. There's no one bird saying, hey, you know it's going to be fucking cold. Hey, what about you? Tell Bertie over there, is he coming with us? Oh, no, Sam says he's going to stay here. He's going to rough it through the winter. Come on. You know, they enter into a conscious vibration like bees do, like dolphins do, like fish do, like birds do, like ants do, like all these things do, like humans do. In Parliament, I started to ask like 10 years ago, what actually is the state? The state's an invisible energy form. And it doesn't matter, leaders can come and go. Nothing changes about the state. The state is always there, it will never die. It's a self
Yeah.
replicating energy field which draws the human being in, it uses the human being, and it spits them out after a 4 year or 8 year term.
Can I
So,
give you my perspective on that,
yeah,
on the animals? Um, See, the way I'm perceiving this, okay, is when I look at these ant colonies, I notice that even me touching them, how they aggressively go and attack, but they're doing it to protect the colony, the area that they've got inhabited there. But I'm looking at I don't know why I look at these animals as direct mirror and versions of me. But in a sense, when I look at animals, right, they form a bond with you, but it has to start with trust, like we spoke about in the last video. We trust, for example, in things outside of us like the government. But if you look at how the government operates, they're basically operating. It's the same way when I look at the macro and micro wheel. When you see planets, you see them as allegories and stories we form around it to anthropomorphize it. We say the Titans go to war, and then you see certain planetary alignments and whatnot. Somebody could just be like, "Oh, that's happening, right? Certain energies are happening. Wars are happening, right? Certain countries may invade a space, and all of a sudden you see the reaction of a military defending itself or go and do it for the purposes of acquiring resources. It could be power, control, and whatnot. We perceive it as a good way of doing it, and let's say the majority of it would be for structure and stability of that colony. So humans have militaries, most of it for control, but in actuality, it should be more for stability and just government, the same way your body has a government, right?
and also
When I
self
see animals, So what?
Self-protection, self-protection. You
Self
see, in
protection.
the
That's
old
right.
days, with tribes and small villages and that,
Mhm.
they'd always be afraid of the neighboring village or the
Right.
neighboring
Look
tribe.
at it. Look at it like this: the body of government. That's a body, right? In the same way I see a ant colony, that's just a body of government there. You get
Yeah,
what I'm saying? But the way I'm seeing it is we're doing things in an animalistic way. It could be in the animalistic way for, again, survival and just structure for the colony, for the betterment of the colony. Like you said, they have a big army to ensure their survival, right? Well, they could do that. We're doing it either for animalistic purpose in a sense for power and control, or we could do it for protection and for the betterment of protecting the people, right? But a lot of this I see as within so without. So when I see, for example, somebody say, why do vegans exist? Vegans fight for the rights of animals. They say, well, why wouldn't we fight for the rights of animals when you clearly see that they're in slaughterhouses, they're striving to stay alive, right? When we look at death is very unknown to people. But everything, as far as we look at death, it's something that we categorize as the category of bad. But in actuality, when I see nature, there's some bugs that are just eating. Let's say a vegan bug is eating my plants. It's in harmony. It's having it's probably in its own kingdom of heaven there, right? When you got that carnivorous animal now eating that bug, it's eating that bug, but that bug that got eaten was under a certain state. It was still under a state of bliss. That now was energy transferred into another body, but it was now it's in the form of evolution, right? Do you notice how the stuff that we are consuming as far as media or the stuff that we eat in our mouth or the stuff that we touch is mainly toxic to us and how we process it? Mainly we process it unconsciously and then we don't know why certain things arise from us like anxiety and stress and whatnot. So when I see something eaten by another thing, it could be one or two things, right? These animals obviously want to stay alive, but they're animals, but they're really not beings. They're things that are appearing the same way people are appearing in life, and they're just NPCs. Everything in your reality, we're in a simulation theory, right? It's programmed to stay alive for self-preservation, right? So how do we know that the things that got, that's why we say we are what we eat and what we eat becomes you. So let's say if you eat something, you consume information, it can change you from the inside out. Information overall, it can be life changing. It can be so impactful that uh, it changed your paradigm. Now you're a different person. You're born again of a different form that you were before just by eating certain information, right? That transformed you because you ate it on the spiritual level. When you eat things on an egoic level, you may be watching TV, you're just watching Netflix, eating mindlessly. It's just a zombie way of doing it. That's why we're already in the zombie apocalypse.
yeah,
But that's why I say I see everything as one. And if you could see between the lines, you can see that even death is not necessarily a bad thing. If I get consumed by a god, right? But I'm in a pure, let's say, state or whatever, or maybe the god transitions me to a form of evolution. The same way if I eat an animal, I pray over that dish. I have the ability to do that. And I'm only talking about gods outside of me. It's just to put things into perspective. But even though a God outside of me consumes me, it's still me consuming myself. The same way if I consume an animal, I'm consuming something outside of myself that land. What are the odds that that specific piece of meat landed on my plate from all the trillions of meats that are on the planet of all the factory farms? You get what I'm saying? And then there's so many variables. If we believe in cause and effect, how do we know that these animals that died in that slaughterhouse weren't a result of somebody who lived an animalistic life in the previous life if we believe in past lives, right? I'm just putting things into perspective. They live such an animalistic state, cause so much harm that they have to go through that just to cleanse out their karma. You know what I'm saying? And I'm only talking from perspectives of how many different ways people spiritually look at things, right? You can look at it from a cosmic specter things, the stars going through wars and whatnot, humans going through wars, animals going through animalistic situations that appear to them be going to war, because ant colonies go to wars too.
yeah. I mean,
You know?
it's just supplant transition
Yeah,
for war, and the
yeah,
whole cosmos goes through a transition. So that
right.
subject is massive in and of itself. So we'll
Mhm.
address that next time,
And another
along with
topic, absolutely.
unicorns and tulpas, and maybe a bit
Oh
more,
yeah,
about what you think the nature of God is and those sort of things. And
because that'll be another 3 hour conversation probably on that.
yeah, exactly. And then we'll get involved with the energy. What actually is it that
Yeah,
moves
yeah.
these ant colonies? Where does that intelligence come from? And I think we have to throw evolution out of the
Can I
equation.
give you a quick answer to that? I
Yeah.
feel like everything that I'm observing in my reality, I'm giving life to. You get what I'm saying? I give life just by observing it. Like I'm bringing things into existence with my imagination, or let's say if I'm dreaming this reality,
Oh, yeah.
like you, I'm giving you life right now. By giving you attention, even itself, I'm giving you life. But you're not like, I'm not trying to insult you, but in my reality, let's say you're a character in my game that
Yeah.
I'm having an interaction with, and it's no different than me talking to myself through the medium of the internet.
I'm an
But
extra
I'm
in your.
giving exactly. So I'm giving you life, and I'm giving life to these ants. And the same way I give life to these ants is the same way I created the government outside of me. But at what point do we grow up from that? That's the point. Like the government is basically people's daddies because they depend on the government to sustain their living like look, you don't even own your house. If you could buy a house but you don't pay your taxes, like you're fucked. You know what I'm saying? Like you're basically gonna get your house taken away even if you paid for it in full.
Yeah.
So that we could get into another topic on that, but I feel like you give life to the planet. You're the light of the world. You're the one that gives energy to all things, including the animals. Let's say even the cats that came into my reality, I drew them into my reality. Those animals are spirit guides to me, or an animal spirit. I didn't even like cats. They appeared in my. I got 15 cats outside. You
Wow.
get what I'm saying? I would have never imagined I would have had cats in my fucking life. But
Yeah.
I've got all kinds of cats, and they've shown me a lot of things as far as to just how they interact with themselves. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? They're very loving, but when it comes to food time, oh, they will fuck each other up.
Yeah.
Like they will fuck each other. Some will even run each other off. There's alphas, there's beta cats. Like there's some in the like even how they eat is so interesting. You've got the alpha cat that allows them to eat, but when it feels like it needs them, it wants to clear out the path, it will start fucking smacking them out of the way. And if anybody gets close, it will fuck that cat up. But that alpha cat, you can see who the alpha is. And we
Yeah.
look at this in our human way, and I'm like, shit. I mean, look how humanity acts. It's the same fucking shit
Oh,
when they're
yeah.
in their animalistic state.
It's the same format throughout the cosmos with everything we're
Yeah.
looking at. We've got these survival programs. By the way, I used to have 15 cats when I lived in Bulgaria. I had 15 cats. I had 11 chickens and 2 cockerels. I had a dog and 3 sheep and 2 ponies.
Woo! Matter of fact, I just posted a video today on some, not all of them, but some of the cats that were there. It's just, I found this so funny because every time I come home, they come and greet me, you know? And at first, they didn't want to come near me. They were all skittish, they were shy, but they got so much trust in me now that we formed a strong relationship. I've even got some praying mantis egg hatched in one of my rooms where I got my plants. I
Wow.
mean, they're all over the place, bro. But praying mantis is something that I actually value because
I've
they're
seen that
soldiers for the
one.
garden.
I'm going to watch
You
that
know?
one. That one sounds very
Yeah,
interesting. Okay, so we've done now 3 hours and 25 minutes.
yeah,
So
yeah.
another epic conversation. And
Very good.
so, yeah, I mean, God, we've got so much to talk about. And so next time we'll tackle those topics. And I don't know how familiar you are with egregores and tulpas. It's something
Oh
that,
yeah,
yeah,
we could get into that.
you know, I've been thinking about those things for a long time without knowing that those subjects existed, and so it's another one of
Oh
those
yeah,
things. So yeah. Anyway, it's
yeah. We could dive deep into that for sure.
20 to 11 here now, evening time.
Mhm. Yeah,
So yeah, going to have a cup of coffee and then chill out for half an hour before to go to bed. But yeah,
yeah,
brilliant conversation. Really enjoyed it again.
yeah. Very good conversation. I
Yeah.
think this is one of our top ones, man. To be honest with you, we covered a lot of good stuff here. Stuff that's good. Even if we start to think about it, does all this information even matter when you really think about it? But it's something that you start to analyze reality, and it's because somebody would say, "Well, what does all this information matter? How would it benefit me in my life?" Right? Well, it's just the same way. Like you could say, "Well, what does your mind matter?" Right? Like you can say, if you use your mind, it could be beneficial for you. But if you don't use your mind, I mean, others can basically use it for you. This is just all a product of your mind. And if you're not using it, it's just well that you couldn't use.
We could have been watching something on YouTube. We could have been playing an instrument. We could have been working
Uh,
out. We could have been doing a whole lot of stuff. It's just, we've got this human experience and we've got to fill it in with the things that make us feel the happiest. And
that's right.
this is what, rocks our boat. So that's why we do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
super duper.
Hey, man, it was a pleasure talking to you, bro. I really
Absolutely.
appreciate it.
Always looking
Um,
to.
yeah, so we got more stuff. I mean, we'll chat. We'll give it a little bit of about, I don't know, a few days maybe. We'll jump back on. But stay in touch, man. If you can, I really I never tell people to go watch my videos, but watch the psychedelic ones. I want
Yep.
you to see, so maybe we could tie that into like our next conversation.
Yep.
That's something that I'm very passionate about. I like nature, but then there's certain things that I can say. Does nature need me or do I need nature? You get what I'm saying? In
You're
a
on
sense, where we start to say that we
it.
are nature, yeah. So yeah, and if we really see it, we don't need to get involved with nature, but nature does want to have an experience through us. And sometimes when we observe that, I look at the plant having an experience through me, and I'm just the watcher observing this shit. You get what I'm saying?
Yep.
But
Well,
we're so ingrained in our humanity that we think it's us going through that, and it's really not you.
yeah,
Nothing's
it's
you're
all
observing nature.
it's all is every single thing of it is us. And so
Yeah,
once we get into that vein, then that's it. Everything is just a game. Everything is just we're just playing out
yeah,
the sojourn that we have here, which we call years, and so that's it. That's what we're doing. And so yeah,
yeah.
okay. And until next time, then Ziggy, have a good one and talk soon. Yeah.
Yep.
Nice one,
Thank you,
Joe.
bro. Much appreciated. Later,
Cheers,
bro.
man. How do I?